All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Happy Friday. Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to this special meeting of the San Jose City Council related to our exploration of a San Jose Municipal electric utility. Tony, would you please call the roll?
Kimay, Campos,
Present.
Salas,
Here.
Cohen,
Here.
Ortiz, Mulcahy,
Here.
Dwan,
Here.
Candelas,
Here.
Casey,
Here.
Foley,
Here.
Mahan.
Here.
You have a quorum.
I see Councilmembers Kamei and Ortiz walking in.
All present.
We got everybody. Okay, excellent. Well, just before we jump in, I want to thank Kip, Erica, Lori, Nancy, Kevin, everybody on the team who has worked so hard to do a very thorough analysis of what our opportunities are, how our future relationship with PG&E may evolve, and at the end of the day, how do we best serve our residents, our businesses, and set our city up for the kind of growth that we want to see. Maintaining our competitive edge as the capital of Silicon Valley, creating greater economic opportunity for our residents, building out a tax base that allows us to fund other vital public services. This is, by the way, Kip Harkness's last council meeting, as I understand it, after 25 years of service to our city, leading a myriad of initiatives, from my personal favorite, the Strong Neighborhoods Initiative, to helping to lead the city's response to a global pandemic. I watched every one of Kip's presentations twice, essentially, very informative and thoughtful, to helping to lead our EOC as we've needed his guidance through some difficult times. And then doing a lot of work on resilience, sustainability, energy. So I'm just really grateful to Kip for his leadership, incredible problem solver, and having that tech background. I feel like sometimes we've spoken the same language that isn't always so common in government, but I just appreciate his push for moving quickly, being iterative, being nimble, and learning as we go. So Kip, thank you for your service to our city. Also just want to quickly thank our partners at PG&E who have been along with us on this exploration and been very open and willing to engage deeply in understanding our needs, how this space is evolving, how we might deepen our partnership to better serve existing and future customers. Patty Poppy, who isn't here today but is PG&E's CEO, has been incredibly responsive. Didn't realize when I ran for office I'd be talking to the CEO of PG&E every week, but there we are. Last night she and I were chatting again, so there's a lot to talk about, and her team, Teresa Alvarado, Mike Medeiros, Christina Ramos, and the rest of the team have been really collaborative through the process, and it makes sense that we're talking so much, because energy is really the infrastructure that generates, distributes that energy is kind of the backbone of the entire economy and is what makes modern civilization work. So it's pretty foundational. So grateful to PG&E for helping us figure out how we might serve the needs of our large load customers and continue to improve service for heartbeat customers. So with that, we had a memo on March 4th that gave a lot of direction. We sent staff off to continue working with PG&E to come back and bring us a agreement that is before us today. So we're going to turn to a staff presentation to better understand, help the council better understand where we may be going, and then have council discussion, deliberation, and some additional direction, a vote, and then when we will we'll hear public comment, and then we'll take some council action, I presume. Okay, so with that, who am I turning it over to? Kip, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the kind words. It's been an honor to serve the city of San Jose and its residents through 5 mayors and 8 city managers. Of course, you're the best.
Yeah, I paid him to say that.
I'm going to get a lot of flack on that later.
Wait a minute, you're talking about me, right, Kip?
Yes, of course. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the general public. I am Kip Harkness, Deputy City Manager with the responsibility for the city's infrastructure, utilities, and emergency management. Today, and this session is going to be a great one, we have an interesting and important topic to discuss. Some might say it's electric, and I'm here all week. And we are asking you for your direction at a critical time. Let me start by introducing the team. I have here in the back box with me Erica Garafo, our lead resilience strategist for the city manager's office, our partners in PG&E, Mike Medeiros, who is the VP of South Bay Project Management Organization. We have Christina Ramos next to him, who is our Senior Government Affairs for PG&E, and Teresa Alvarado, Regional Vice President of the South Bay Central Coast Division for PG&E. Joining us in the front box, and there'll be some folks swapping in and out, but right now we have Jay Guevara with Deputy Director of Public Works and Development Services, Kevin Ice, Lori Mitchell, our Director of Energy Department, just back from a sojourn as the Acting Director of Environmental Services, so glad to have her back full-time in the seat. Kevin Ice, our Director of Real Estate for the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs, and Nancy Klein, also a very short-timer and an amazing contributor to the city, our Director of Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs. So together we're going to take about an hour or so to walk you through this complicated and timely topic, and we'll leave plenty of time for discussion, debate, and your direction. So we come to you at what I think of as a magic moment when it comes to electricity in the city of San Jose. After years of relatively stable demand or even degrading demand, we are seeing ever-rising interest in energy-intensive industries, such as data centers, advanced manufacturing, and related uses. If we can provide those customers with the electricity that they want in a timely manner, we will see a wave of investment that will have positive economic and fiscal impact across our city. Today's presentation is, at its heart, about exploring what is the best approach to catch that wave for the benefit of the community. We'll give a bit of a background and an overview. We'll go a bit into the opportunity around municipal electric utility, which we call San Jose Power. We'll talk in depth about our partnership opportunity with PG&E, and then we'll conduct an evaluation and between the two options and the trade-offs. Finally, we'll go into more depth in the recommended path forward, which is a detailed implementation agreement with PG&E, and then we'll look at our BATNA, our best alternative to a negotiated agreement, and close for your questions and direction. So with that, let me start with a little bit of a timeline and give us the backstory. We've been working on this really for many years. Over the last year and a half in particular, staff have been exploring a potential municipal electric utility, and in parallel, the city has engaged with PG&E in increasingly extensive collaboration regarding the future of electric infrastructure, driven by our common desire to support economic growth, meet increasing electrical demand, and advance our decarbonization goals. Today, we'll talk through both of these efforts, both of these work streams in greater detail, and make recommendations on next steps. So two of the key actions that you took, one of them was back in October 3rd, 2023, where we were directed to explore the feasibility of establishing San Jose Power as a municipal electric utility in limited areas of the city. There were a number of questions that we were directed to evaluate and answer. The four key ones were, if we do this, would it reduce electrical energy costs? Would it allow the development of more innovative and energy-efficient buildings? Would it increase electrical resilience of the city? And would we be able to attract and retain the skilled and trained talent required to perform this work effectively and reliably? This direction set in motion the exploration of a municipal electric utility, and partially as a result, PG&E approached us seeking a deeper partnership. After extensive work with them, you gave us direction on March 4th to enter into a non-binding cooperation agreement focusing on these 6 points. That agreement has been executed and is the basis for the conversation we're having today on the implementation agreement. In addition to the work that's bound up in the agreement, we have been established regular coordination with PG&E on a range of topics from emergency response and preparedness to electrical connections, resilience and innovation, to future planning, much of which is encompassed in the details of this agreement and the agreement we'll speak about today. We'll come back to both of these efforts in more detail, but first I want to spend some time to level set our understanding of the electrical system and the economic and fiscal impacts of these, quote, large load electric customers such as data centers. So let's take a moment to walk through at a very high level the key components of the existing electrical energy system as they are in North America and how they would change if we were to launch a municipal electric utility here in San Jose. From left to right, we start with generation of electricity. That's the electrons that are actually produced going through the wires. For us, that's largely solar, wind, geothermal, nuclear, with some natural gas and other as we move toward our ambitious carbon goals. And then that electricity that is generated needs to be transmitted. The transmission is typically on very high voltage wires over extremely long distances. This system is managed in California by CAISO, the California Independent Systems Operator, which is actually a nonprofit which oversees the approximately 27,000 miles of high voltage transmission lines in the state of California, which might be owned or operated by different folks, including PG&E. From then, you step that power down and you scale it into an electrical distribution system. These are the lines you see going around neighborhoods, or if they're undergrounded, are going below you in neighborhoods and communities. And this step-down power is routed directly to the customer, whether it's a house or a business or other use. And finally, you get into the customer, the wires in your house moving the electricity around, and then the bill that you pay is a combination of the electrical generation, which in San Jose is by default San Jose Clean Energy, and about 97% or more of our customers in San Jose are San Jose Clean Energy, the transmission costs, and then the distribution costs, which in San Jose are PG&E. So your total bill is a combination of the cost of all three of those as you see them. So if we were to stand up a municipal electric utility, a couple of things would change for those customers which were served by the municipal electric utility. And I want to say in any instance, we're talking about a very small percentage of the city. We're not talking about a mass takeover of PG&E's existing infrastructure. So what we'd be looking at is the new utility would be in charge of the electrical generation. They would be separate from clean energy, but we would rely on that team in clean energy to buy that power. They have the capability, and we would essentially contract out with them to enter into power purchase agreements and other forms of purchasing the power over the long term, medium term, and short term. The other thing that would change is for those customers served by the San Jose Power, the distribution infrastructure, the lines coming off of the high voltage line and into the buildings, would be built and run by San Jose Power. Otherwise, the system would be pretty much the same. So to talk about the economic and fiscal impact, I want to transition over to Nancy Klein, our Director of the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs. Nancy?
Kip, thank you very, very much. Mayor and Council, good morning. Reliable electricity is central to San Jose's economic vitality. With ever-rising interest in energy-intensive industries such as data centers, advanced manufacturing, and artificial intelligence applications, a robust electrical grid with certainty on the speed of interconnection, as well as reliability of power and competitive pricing, is essential for continued economic growth in our region. In parallel, decarbonization initiatives and building electrification are reshaping transmission and distribution of electricity. Modernizing transmission and distribution capacity, whether through improved investor-owned utility services or a city-operated municipal utility, can unlock new development opportunities and solidify San Jose's position as a premier location for innovation. Specifically, having clear terms on certainty of power, reliability of power, timeliness, could help the city streamline project timelines for developers, secure cost-competitive rates, and advance resilience measures, all of which serve as catalysts for continued economic growth. Moreover, attracting these large load customers, such as data centers and advanced manufacturing, have a driving role in economic development. Large load development provides high-quality jobs during construction and operation in many cases, and provides very strong, significant ongoing general fund revenues. A special note is that these industrial uses provide more jobs and more income to the city while requiring less city services, particularly for residential uses. As an example, a new 99 megawatt data center fully ramped up and running would provide an estimated $3.5 to $6.4 million annually in property tax and utility users tax and require fewer city services. There are an estimated 500 to 800 megawatts of large load projects currently in planning right now, and there's an additional up to 1,000 megawatts of load that is foreseeable for nearer term future development, like the 159 acres of economic development land south of the regional wastewater facility.
Thank you, Nancy. Lori Mitchell, Director of the Energy Department. So currently, the electrical infrastructure in the region faces capacity limitations and delays in interconnection that pose a challenge to accommodating economic growth and meeting our sustainability targets. The availability of reliable, affordable, and clean energy infrastructure is critical to attracting business, supporting economic development, and fostering innovation. The good news is that there are 2 new transmission lines that have been approved by the California Independent System Operator, which is, as Kip said, the agency that manages the transmission system in California, and these lines are being funded by all ratepayers. The transmission lines are in design now, and they are going to be constructed by a company called LS Power, and they will bring significant capacity to the region over the next 3 to 5 years. It is important to note that these transmission lines will be constructed regardless about what happens today regarding San Jose Power or our partnership with PG&E. As Kip noted, the City Council directed us in October of '23 to evaluate the possibility of San Jose launching its own municipal electric utility called San Jose Power. The analysis focused on the utility providing service in limited parts of the city that are located near these new transmission lines. The locations we considered were North San Jose and downtown, and we studied serving approximately 250 megawatts of capacity in each area for a total of up to 500 megawatts. The principal objective of the evaluation was to develop a business case that could offer timely power delivery at competitive prices to spur economic growth and advance our energy resilience. Next slide. So after a competitive process, the city selected 3 consultants to evaluate the opportunity. New Gen Strategies was selected to develop the business case and the financial pro forma. Mercer was selected to provide a staffing analysis and identify key positions and salary ranges. They also benchmarked comparable roles at other utilities and found that some salary ranges do exceed those within the current City of San Jose's pay plan. This indicated to us that we may have potential challenges in hiring and retaining specialized talent. Worley was selected to provide engineering and technical expertise on the interconnection application and the build-out of the distribution infrastructure. Worley concluded that connecting to the transmission line is feasible and offered approaches to facilitate the interconnection. One of the most important points of the business case modeling was developing a financial pro forma and understanding the costs associated with providing the service and how this compares to existing PG&E rates. To develop the analysis, NewGen developed a detailed financial model with cost assumptions on all aspects of providing this service. They estimated the cost to operate and maintain the infrastructure for a period of 20 years, the cost of interconnection, the staffing expenses, the power supply and transmission charges from the California ISO, as well as many other assumptions. In addition, they analyzed the costs of any required regulatory non-bypassable charges from PG&E, such as the power charge and difference adjustment. Each of these assumptions were stress tested, and staff directed them to use more conservative assumptions in all cases to ensure we had realistic and conservative estimates of the potential savings. Another important assumption we included was that the developer would fund and construct the majority of the new distribution infrastructure. This ensures that the city is not left with stranded costs and assets if a developer does not build in the service area, and it minimizes risk to the city. This slide shows the estimated savings of providing the service. As I mentioned, we looked at various scenarios and assumptions, and one of the most impactful was whether or not regulatory non-bypassable charges, such as the PCIA, are applicable. Our consultants' advice is that they would not apply, as these charges are meant to compensate PG&E for the unavoidable costs associated with departing load. As we are only looking to serve new customers in the region, not existing customers, the advice was that this charge should not apply. That being said, we wanted to ensure we had conservative assumptions of both the potential savings of customers by providing this service, so we included the results of both. And as you can see, with the PCIA, the modeling resulted that we could provide service at 14 to 20% lower cost than PG&E, and without the PCIA, those costs could be 23 to 27% lower. So for a typical 99 megawatt data center located in the region, that means an annual savings of $16 to $34 million. Next slide. So together with in-house expertise, these consultants provided the city with critical insights into the financial viability, the staffing implications, and technical considerations for launching a new municipal electric utility service. Over the months of developing the business case and Worley's technical analysis, staff determined that the ideal service area was in North San Jose on land adjacent to and near the regional wastewater facility. This area has a number of aspects that make it an ideal location. For example, it is already envisioned and entitled for the build-out of manufacturing, data centers, and similar large load customers. It is also immediately adjacent to the new transmission lines, and a large amount of land is available for the development and redevelopment, including the 159 acres of economic development land near the regional wastewater facility. It is also home to significant critical infrastructure, including the RWF and associated water facilities. Based on these factors, staff narrowed the geographic scope of the business case to focus on North San Jose for the initial phases of build-out. As I stated, the business case developed focused on a developer-financed infrastructure approach to limit financial risk to the city by shifting the initial capital outlay to private development partners. Staff worked with several potential partner developers to explore and evaluate this approach. We concluded that this approach is viable in North San Jose and that a resulting municipal electric utility could provide reliable service at a lower cost than PG&E. The limited geography of the service area and the high value of the initial customer, coupled with their ability to finance infrastructure up front, significantly reduces risk for the city. A successful startup of San Jose Power would entail considerable effort on the part of the city administration over the next several years to stand up a completely new line of business. This would require the swift onboarding of a highly skilled team to design and build the utility, as well as a rapid build-out of the necessary support functions. The effort would rely on significant support from city attorney, finance, the budget office, the energy department, and public works, and in particular, it would require an ongoing high level of leadership and engagement from the city manager's office. The recommended approach would start with a small, highly skilled staff team and lean on the energy department for many of the services related to energy procurement, regulatory compliance, and customer billing that they currently provide for San Jose Clean Energy. Of course, these staff would charge San Jose Power customers for this service and not San Jose Clean Energy customers for providing this service. The bottom line is that we concluded that the city has a viable opportunity to start up San Jose Power and provide service in the area of North San Jose at a lower cost than PG&E. And with that, I will turn it back to Kip.
Thank you, Lori. And just as a reference point, we've been talking in megawatts. The current load for the city of San Jose, Lori, about how many megawatts do we do at this point?
About 1,000.
Yeah, so about 1,000. So when we're talking about an additional 800 megawatts in the planning process and an additional potential 1,000 beyond that, you're talking about almost doubling or tripling the amount of electricity that's being consumed in the city of San Jose, which is a tremendous, tremendous change. So just to put that in perspective of what we're talking about. So again, thank you for that, Lori. I want to shift over to our second worksheet stream, which is the partnership opportunity with PG&E, and go into a bit greater detail on that. Staff recognize that under any circumstances, PG&E's existing grid remains foundational for the vast majority of customers citywide. Consequently, city staff and PG&E negotiated a cooperation agreement to drive upgrading and expanding electrical infrastructure in North San Jose and downtown and ensure certainty and increased speed of interconnection for large load electrical customers. The city entered into this non-binding cooperation agreement with PG&E pursuant to the direction given by the City Council on March 4th, 2025. Bottom line, you see some of the key points here: funding for the team, commitment to joint planning, commitment to define milestones that hold us accountable for speed and certainty of interconnection for these large load customers, process improvements on our individual process and creating a more fluid joint process together, and workforce development to make sure some of these jobs, which are ideal kind of pathways to prosperity, are available to our local residents as we build out this electrical infrastructure. Bottom line, we think the execution of the cooperation agreement and negotiation of an implementation agreement represents a significant shift in PG&E's approach and commitment to its customers in San Jose. If the intent of these agreements can be realized, there is tremendous potential to drive economic development at scale over the next several years in both downtown and North San Jose. I would like to invite Mike Medeiros and Cristina Ramos with PG&E to share their perspective on the partnership and in particular the cooperation agreement. Mike, Cristina.
Thank you, Kip. Appreciate that. Good morning, council members and mayor. I'm Cristina Ramos, Senior Government Affairs for PG&E. Thank you for having us here today. I'm here with our team, Vice President Mike Medeiros and Regional Vice President Teresa Alvarado, to discuss what we've been focused on and the progress we have made here in San Jose as your utility partner. Over the past 2 years, our two organizations have been meeting on a regular basis to discuss the city's concerns and priorities, and these conversations have led us to collaboration and sharpened our focus on the infrastructure needed and the investments for innovative service solutions to meet the significant forecasted growth here in San Jose. Since then, we established our South Bay Delivery Program Management Office led by our Vice President here, Mike Medeiros, so that PG&E can address the needs of San Jose and help deliver services our customers expect and deserve. In addition, in 2024, PG&E submitted $77 million in franchise fees, city franchise surcharge, and utility tax. And with over our 800 employees, we have worked on major initiatives that benefit San Jose, such as large load cluster study, secured approval to rebuild a major substation serving downtown, strengthened our coordination to streamline the delivery of new business connections, and completed critical capacity projects to serve some of the largest companies here in San Jose. We strongly believe that today, more than ever, PG&E is best positioned to offer San Jose the commitments and investments needed that will enable the city's vision without introducing risk to the city or its budget. The cooperation agreement approved by Council on March 4th provided the framework for that implementation agreement we have been working on with staff. And to discuss this further, I'll hand it over to our Vice President, Mike Medeiros.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. Mike Medeiros, Vice President, South Bay Delivery for PG&E. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a few comments on the implementation agreement and express how excited PG&E is to be here. The proposal in front of you today is truly the first of its kind. It's an indication of PG&E's commitment to be the utility that the city of San Jose deserves and one that can facilitate and contribute to your economic development goals. PG&E has made great progress over the last couple of years, as we have highlighted in previous conversations and presentations. And this implementation agreement is another indication of our commitment and will provide the city with the certainty it needs to attract new load, adding job growth, tax benefits, and economic growth that will benefit the entire city. PG&E is committed to partnering with the city to meet the city's economic development needs in a timely manner and help grow the economy. When San Jose is successful, PG&E is successful. As I mentioned during our discussion on the cooperation agreement on March 4th, our initial analysis on adding new beneficial load to our system indicates that for every 1 gigawatt or every 1,000 megawatts of new interconnected load added to our system, all customers will on average see a 1% to 2% cost savings. We've been working closely with city staff on a proposal to advance new grid infrastructure that would deliver power to new large industrial and commercial facilities in North San Jose and downtown. The implementation agreement proposal before you today will allow PG&E to start building out the grid to support new economic development projects that will allow the city to confidently recruit new businesses to the area. PG&E will provide concrete, enforceable milestones for the construction and operation of the infrastructure needed. Part of our proposal is also offering a new level of support for the city's economic development efforts, as well as a dedicated project execution team to support these large load opportunities in San Jose. We know that energy availability and connection timeline is a critical part of the recruitment process and retention process as businesses are choosing to locate in San Jose or to expand their existing footprint. We want PG&E co-workers to work alongside your economic development team, as well as other key city departments, to provide the data and support needed for potential projects. We believe that showing up together for customers will enhance alignment and stability through the recruitment, permitting, engineering, and construction process. We strongly believe that PG&E is best positioned to offer this for San Jose. As you've heard today, we are ready to make new commitments and invest in the infrastructure and a partnership that will enable the city's vision without introducing the risk of relying on a new investment partner or having to set up, administer, and operate a new utility. PG&E will commit to finance, engineer, construct, operate, and maintain new grid infrastructure that delivers power to new large industrial and commercial facilities within defined, agreed-to areas of planned economic development. As mentioned, PG&E will provide concrete, enforceable milestones for the construction and operation of the infrastructure based on a shared understanding with the city as to the schedule and the amount of future capacity to be served. As we are meeting the agreed upon milestones, we expect the city to pause efforts to municipalize. I speak for all of PG&E that we are ready to make this implementation agreement a success and look forward to implementing it as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mike and Christina. One note, there's a lot of complexity in this, and I do want to remind folks that as PG&E builds out that additional infrastructure, as we bring that load online, the actual electrons in the generation will be default provided by San Jose Clean Energy. So the growth in energy will be growth in energy on the distribution and transmission side for PG&E and Ellis Power and others, but it will be a growth in generation on our side in terms of San Jose Clean Energy, even under this scenario, because we remain the default provider. So let's get into the evaluation of the options. I want to, now that we had a chance to have a little bit of a deeper dive into both the potential municipal electric utility and the PG&E cooperation approach, I want to share with you our evaluation of these options, starting with the direction from City Council on the municipal electric utility. Staff's initial evaluation of San Jose Power answered the 4 key questions raised at City Council on October 2023. The first of these is if we were to provide a municipal electric utility for electrical service, if the city were to provide municipal utility for electrical service in limited areas of the city, could that be done in a way that would, 1, reduce electric energy cost? And our answer is yes, but a qualified yes, because it's only for a small number of customers using the system. Based on the results of the business case developed by NewGen, San Jose Power could offer rates to these limited number of customers at savings between 14% to 26% compared to PG&E. Second question, would this allow for the development of more innovative and energy-efficient buildings such as that envisioned in the planned Downtown West development? Yes, again, but only for the limited number of customers in the new service area. In starting a municipal electric utility from scratch, the city's electrical service requirements and standards could be developed to reflect the most current and innovative approaches to energy infrastructure, and thereby ensure that projects connected by San Jose Power, can incorporate advanced renewable energy systems, achieve higher energy efficiency standards, and serve as innovative models for sustainable urban development. Question number 3. Would this increase electrical resilience for the city of San Jose and our critical infrastructure for both climate change and emergency response? Again, we think the answer here is a likely yes, but only for a subset of critical infrastructure. Powering critical infrastructure, such as the regional wastewater facility or San Jose Airport, through a municipal electric utility, could allow the city to design and upgrade or construct and operate that distribution network in a way that provided a reliable and resilient source of electricity without some of the limitations of a larger investor-owned utilities, regulatory processes, external stakeholder pressures, or wait times for the infrastructure upgrades, thereby potentially enabling a more flexible or rapid improvements to meet the city's resiliency needs in a limited area. And then fourth, would we be able to attract and retain the skilled and trained talent required to perform this work effectively and reliably, both in the startup and over time? And the answer to this is frankly uncertain. According to the Mercer staffing study, the salaries offered by nearby jurisdictions in key roles, such as general manager, chief electrical engineer, and new high voltage line worker classifications, exceed the city's current pay range for these or similar positions. This could pose challenges in attracting and retaining critical positions required to establish a new municipal electric utility at a competitive salary without potential changes in the city's current salary structure. So that's the opportunity itself, but we really have to compare these apples to apples. So to do that, we looked at 8 different criteria, and we tried to compare both the status quo that we had with PG&E back around 2001, the opportunity we have with San Jose Power, and the opportunity we have with the implementation agreement. This one is going to work this through in some detail. This is sort of the messy middle of the presentation, and then we'll move forward with a little bit more of what the implementation agreement holds. So these are the 8 criteria: certainty of power and speed of interconnection and customer electrical rates. Nancy talked about this some, but I want to emphasize that in this moment in time, what the large load customers are telling us is A, B, and C are all important, but particularly important in this moment in time is having the certainty that they will receive the high level of power that they need, and that they will be able to do that as quickly as possible to allow them to make the investments that they want to make to build out these loads. The other criteria that we looked at were resilience, innovation and design, emergency preparedness and response, one that's near and dear to me, PG&E and the city's relationship, risk to the city, and city level of effort, particularly around leadership level of effort. One of my observations over the last 25 years is the city can do anything that it wants. It can't do everything that it wants. And one of the biggest constraints on what it can do is leadership attention and bandwidth. And so we really look at not necessarily how many people are working on something, but how much of the leadership's time and attention is focused when we look at city level of effort. So if we look at these, we'll go back to 2021, and you can see just from the color chart here, it's a basic modified traffic light. Green is better, red is worse, and we have a yellow and an orange in the middle there. Our analysis of where we were with PG&E and where we were on their performance, you can see just from the color coding here, sort of the point of departure, the reason we're having this conversation. We were not satisfied with where we were with PG&E, and we wanted to seek some alternatives. We were hearing from many, many folks about delays in interconnection and experiencing those with our own development. And we had serious concerns from emergency response to risk to the city. So how does San Jose Power stack up to that? Against the 8 criteria shown above, we see 6 being quite strong: certainty of power, speed of interconnection, customer electricity rates, resilient, innovation, and emergency management and preparedness, and 3 criteria with cause for concern: our relationship with PG&E, risk to the city, and city level of effort. I want to go into 4 of these in more detail. On the electrical rates, as Lori has discussed, the rates under a newly created San Jose Power would likely be significantly lower than PG&E, but the practical benefits would be limited to a small number of customers, most likely in the initial North San Jose service area and probably immediately adjacent or very close to the transmission lines being built out by LS Power. Although reduced electric rates would be attractive to additional development, feedback from prospective developers indicates that many of them are very concerned first and foremost with reliability of power and faster interconnection speeds. And cost, while cost is always a factor in business, is somewhat secondary for a limited segment of the data center market in particular at this time. Point number G, maintaining a strong relationship with PG&E. Because PG&E would continue to serve the vast majority of the city, establishing San Jose Power would strain the relationship with PG&E. And the city must consider the interest of all residents and the progress it has already made in building a positive working relationship with PG&E. I will say that this factor alone should not be the deciding criterion against starting a municipal electric utility, as any investor-owned utility will invariably oppose new entrants into the market and its service area, and we should not make their concerns alone a reason for not going forward. The next two are perhaps the most important: risk to the city and city level of effort. Risk to the city is higher with San Jose Power approach. While the developer-financed approach that we were exploring seeks to minimize risk, and it does a good job at that, the reality is that any startup of a new electric utility would face risks in initial design and construction of the system, especially if it's being done at speed, and related to ongoing operations and emergency response. The risk would be partially mitigated by the onboarding of highly skilled team members. However, there are significant limitations that we've discussed in our ability to attract and retain the specialized skilled staffing needed to launch and operate a new line of municipal business at this time. Also, taking on a utility means the city alone shoulders the responsibility for success. While there is still some risk in partnering with PG&E, namely if PG&E does not fulfill its obligations, it remains lower risk compared to launching an entirely new operation, and I'll go into that in some detail in a moment. Finally, the city level of effort. As I've alluded to, what is required for creating and managing a new utility would be substantial, especially while city leadership and staff must also address urgent priorities such as homelessness and public safety. Although building a municipal electric utility is possible, relying on an established, fully operational utility like PG&E could reduce the city's workload and allow it to focus resources and attention on other critical issues. So staff's evaluation demonstrates that San Jose Power is a viable option. And now we'll go to the PG&E implementation agreement. I'll say as background and context for this, quite apart from the implementation agreement, we have seen a significant shift and change in not only the attitude, but the actions of PG&E over the last several years. I've witnessed this personally and in a very deep way around emergency management in particular, which was kind of a real sore spot back in 2017. I don't have to tell anybody in this room the power safety shutoffs were not a very popular option here, as they cut off the power to large swaths of the city. And over this next several years, PG&E invested significantly in sectionalizing the grid, in coordinating response with us, in sharing data with us, in doing major repairs to the infrastructure, to the point where, in my estimation, that emergency management and response collaboration has gone from the orange, highly problematic, which you saw here in 2021, to a solid green at this point. We have extremely good collaboration with PG&E, and they are investing mightily in amazing technologies, including using AI to pre-position resources in advance of storms in the places which are most likely to have outages. So to me, that was a seminal turning point where not only were they saying the right thing, but they were doing the right thing in a very deep way. And that gave me and staff the confidence to begin to enter into these negotiations with the possibility of change at a greater scale. So as we've noted, there has been significant change, starting with this emergency response. So if successfully implemented, what would we see from an implementation agreement in terms of the scoring? We think that the certainty of power and speed of interconnection are going to increase dramatically for these large load customers. The customer electricity rates will more or less stay the same. They are as they are. And we see opportunities around resilience. There are commitments to explore some of our needs in the regional wastewater facility as well as the airport in the implementation agreement, which could enhance significantly the resilience and reliability of those areas. We expect, on the innovation design, we see improvements there. There are new proceedings that are going forward that allow PG&E greater flexibility. They are still constrained to a certain extent by their Green Book and the size and scale of their operations. However, there has been a positive shift in terms of their ability to do the kind of design work we seek, and a commitment within the implementation agreement to work with us and key customers like data centers to improve those design standards where they can increase speed and certainty of power delivery. We have a green and hope to see a continued green on emergency response. And obviously, as you can see here today, were we to enter into the agreement at your direction, we believe the relationship would be quite strong. There is some risk to the city, though it's lower than we think for San Jose Power. Again, as I said, the primary risk if PG&E isn't able to meet its obligations. And the city level of effort would be considerably lower, in part because they are providing us additional resources to work directly on this problem. And we'll talk a little bit more in detail on what those resources are and the implementation agreement itself. I want to bottom line the evaluation here for everyone. In staff's estimation, given PG&E's commitment to increasing capacity and speed of interconnection, and the vast extent of PG&E's service areas and demonstrated demand for interconnection of large load customers that could not be served by San Jose Power, coupled with the inherent risks in starting a new line of business, the city should focus on scaling a partnership approach with PG&E. This partnership approach should be given ample opportunity to succeed, but also should be backed up by the city's willingness to stand up San Jose Power to serve the regional wastewater facility and 159 acres of economic development land or other areas if and only if PG&E fails to meet its obligations. So since the recommendation is to deepen the partnership with PG&E in an implementation agreement and pause the work on standing up a new municipal electric utility, let's take a deep dive into the implementation agreement we are negotiating that will be the core of this partnership if directed by you. Erica Garafo, our lead resilient strategist, and the woman who has been the driver on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-by-minute basis on this work, will take us and the larger team through the details of the implementation agreement. And then at some point, we will pause and have an opportunity for you to weigh in. So hang with us for a little bit longer, Erica, and I think we're rotating out some folks in the box. But Erica, start with you.
Good morning, Erica Garafo, Lead Resilience Strategist with the City Manager's Office. Thank you. I am joined in the box by Jay Guevara, Deputy Director of Public Works Development Services, Kevin Ice, Director of Real Estate in the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs, Alex Powell, Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement Chief of Staff, and Chris Burton, Director of Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement. As Kip mentioned, it is staff's recommendation that the city negotiate and execute a binding implementation agreement with PG&E for certainty on speed of interconnection and availability of power, and pause efforts to launch San Jose Power. On March 4th of this year, City Council provided direction to incorporate 7 key deal points into the implementation agreement with PG&E. Working with PG&E, all deal points have been incorporated into a 28-page draft agreement. Staff is currently reviewing and editing, and we are aiming to execute by mid-April. The agreement focuses on large load customers in North San Jose and downtown, and also includes improvements for service delivery of customer access across the city. Key elements of the implementation include a commitment to joint planning on economic development, building and funding a city team, an approach to driving delivery, process and design improvements, and increased workforce development opportunities. We'll dive into each of these key elements for the remainder of today's presentation. Handing it over to Jay for the first item.
Good morning. Jay Guevara, Deputy Director of Public Works. So for the proposed implementation agreement, it will facilitate a more collaborative and agile approach to utility planning and construction through the full life cycle. By promoting early stakeholder consultation, advanced design coordination, and expedited timelines, both PG&E and the city would seek to reduce or eliminate the hurdles that have historically prolonged essential infrastructure work. The agreement is premised on a joint approach to electrical infrastructure planning and economic development, where PG&E provides information transparently to the city on load forecast and capital plans, and both parties work together to attract and retain the large load customers who will drive economic development. Let me hand it off to Kevin Ice.
Good morning, Kevin Ice, Director of Real Estate in the Office of Economic Development. So of particular interest for future planning and economic development is the 159-acre property owned by the San Jose Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility. A map of the facility is shown here with the 159 acres highlighted. These lands are part of the plant's buffer area to the south of the main operational area. The plant's master plan calls for development that is compatible with the plant's operations, such as industrial or commercial uses. City staff are preparing a request for qualifications to secure a development partner for the 159 acres. This solicitation is anticipated to be out in the spring of this year. Staff anticipate that some of the types of development to drive the greatest return on investment for the plant will be high energy intensive uses, such as advanced manufacturing or data centers. Critical to the success of this development will be the build-out of the electrical infrastructure. This build-out would be a focus area of the partnership with PG&E and would accordingly be captured in the implementation agreement's key result deliverables to help ensure the development's success. These key results will track initial timelines that are jointly agreed to and coordination on planning, permitting, and construction of electrical infrastructure needed to service the development. Finally, in addition to the capacity upgrades needed to serve the anticipated development, PG&E and the city will develop opportunities to improve the reliability and resilience of the regional wastewater facility. All told, through the North San Jose opportunity and the up to 1,000 megawatts of capacity being available, we estimate that could potentially drive 30 million to 60 million in revenue annually for the city. And the 159 acres successfully building out will be a key part of realizing this potential.
Thank you, Kevin. I'd like to invite Teresa Alvarado, Regional Vice President of the South Bay Central Coast Division, to provide a brief update on their work with LS Power.
Thank you, Erica. Good morning, everyone. At the March 4th council meeting, we were asked about the incoming transmission lines that will interconnect with PG&E's facilities to meet the city's growing energy needs. We are working diligently to meet those needs, and we have concurrence from our partners to share that PG&E, LS Power, and the Open Space Authority are pursuing all available options to protect Coyote Valley and allow LS Power to use land at PG&E's Metcalf Station to build the switching station required as part of its Power Santa Clara Valley project, currently pending before the CPUC. We are very optimistic that we'll be able to present a potential solution to the CPUC for its evaluation, and we'll report on that publicly as soon as it occurs.
Thank you, Teresa. That's great news. So the implementation agreement establishes and funds a dedicated city energy development team required to drive large-scale electric infrastructure projects. The team will focus on large load customers such as data centers, advanced manufacturing, labs, and large-scale residential, all of which will require dedicated and specialized attention. Under this framework, PG&E would provide funding and/or other resources to support city positions tasked with accelerating project reviews, coordinating permitting, and streamlining development. These specialized staff will enable the city to more effectively plan and oversee infrastructure expansion, ensure timely progress, and manage the complex regulatory processes associated with major grid enhancements. The implementation agreement funds 2 positions in the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs that will be responsible for leading the partnership to success and monitoring and tracking PG&E performance obligations and milestones. Jay, would you like to talk about the public works side?
The remaining 4 positions will reside in Public Works in the Development Services and Engineering Services divisions. This will drive delivery in the field and facilitate permit streamlining in the office with dedicated resources to sustain and focus the process improvements. For these positions, PG&E will prepay their standard fees for the equivalent positions. The city has provided this mechanism recently in the past with other utilities, including Comcast, and just this past fall, City Council approved one with LS Power.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, moving on to driving delivery. Clear performance benchmarks and timely reporting are required to help drive delivery for large load customers. For this, we will use objectives as measured by key results, or OKRs. These OKRs will include interconnection timelines and on-schedule electrical upgrades, as well as performance obligations such as availability of required power. These OKRs will be tracked via a dashboard for downtown San Jose and similarly for North San Jose, with additional key results for the 159 acres of economic development lands as Kevin laid out earlier. Staff will track progress through monthly coordination meetings and semi-annual progress reports. When goals are not being met or delays occur, the implementation agreement outlines an escalation mechanism that will ensure that issues are quickly surfaced, analyzed, and resolved. This results-driven framework is intended to support the timely completion of PG&E's projects and maintain the high level of transparency needed to inform stakeholders about the ongoing progress. The implementation agreement also outlines a cure period if results are not met, and the city would have the option to resume exploring San Jose Power if PG&E is not able to meet the performance obligations after the cure period. I'll pause here and invite Mike Medeiros from PG&E to add his perspective.
Yeah, good morning again. At PG&E, over the last couple of years, we've been on a journey to implement a new lean operating system, a key component of which is having regular operating reviews with visual management, measuring, did we do what we set out to do? Are we meeting the target? And if not, what's the catchback plan? We have been and will continue to bring this same rigor and successful structure to our work here in the city of San Jose. While we are still discussing the correct measurable outcomes to track in the implementation agreement to ensure our combined success, we will create a dashboard that will be reviewed on a regular basis with the city to transparently track our critical large load projects and adherence to key major milestones over the life of those projects, as well as our committed in-service dates. While we are also separately tracking our new service timelines and the reliability of our heartbeat customers, small commercial and residential, these large load transmission level customers, mostly data centers, have a level of complexity that will require keen combined focus. Nearly 1 gigawatt or 1,000 megawatts of customers with signed agreements with PG&E to proceed with the detailed engineering study to support their large load projects will be centered here in the city of San Jose, the heart of Silicon Valley. That is 1 gigawatt of customers who have made the decision that PG&E can support its needs based on certainty of power and speed of interconnection. And this does not account for other potential projects where there has been an expression of interest, nor does it account for our desire and plan to support the city's goals to develop the 159 acres in North San Jose. We have been working with data center customers to collaborate on locations for capacity and to make the upstream capacity upgrades on our transmission system to meet the new demand. The good news is PG&E's overall electric system is ready for data centers with multiple areas across our service territory capable of connecting 50 to 100 megawatts today. We have plans on how we will meet the needs of these customers and meeting their requested in-service dates using new innovative approaches like the large load cluster study we implemented last year. That cluster study, which resulted in some of the 1 gigawatt of load for San Jose that I previously mentioned, is seen as an industry-leading practice, resulting in customers who participated giving PG&E a score of 9.14 out of 10 based on responses to our post-transaction survey, and resulted in $200 million of savings versus if we had studied each customer individually, making it economically attractive for customers to affirmatively decide to sign up with PG&E and resulting in lower future cost for all customers.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, I'm going to turn it now to Jay Guevara on process improvements.
So to take a deeper dive into the proposed agreement and how it will allow a dedicated focus on process improvements for large load customers and heartbeat customers, as well as a pilot process to review if expanding the annual programmatic permit for citywide customers is mutually beneficial. The teams have collectively identified hundreds of potential improvements during a 2-day design thinking workshop with experts from the Stanford D School just this past fall, as you can see in the photo, with the requisite plethora of Post-it notes. We will focus on a shorter list, obviously, with the highest potential to improve service for the least amount of investment. Potential innovations include a shared permit status dashboard across all PG&E business units that flow into the city's permitting process. The shared dashboard on permit status would enhance the existing performance measures that Public Works already provides to the city's service levels for PG&E and our shared heartbeat customers. For example, Public Works already sustains 98% on-time delivery 2 business days or less, when our standard is 10 business days for PG&E utility permits. To give you a sense of scale, this is the city's service level for 2,000 permits a year. That's roughly 40 permit reviews per week. Additional opportunities include the weekly PG&E permit priority list to coordinate our construction, a 5-week PG&E construction forecast listing to further provide that visibility, co-location of utility and city review staff, and improved process for joint trenching, and piloting and standardizing equipment specifications for new distribution projects.
Thank you, Jay. Teresa, would you like to add?
Sure, happy to. Thank you very much. So many of you know that I worked for PG&E early in my career from 1999 to 2006. After 15 years away, I returned to PG&E with our new leadership team and our new regional structure in order to get back to basics, serving our hometowns and powering the ideas, I saw you like that, Mayor, and powering the ideas and opportunities, big and small, coming from our customers and the communities that we serve. And we're starting to see very positive results. Do you remember the heat wave that we had last year during 4th of July week? We had several days of over 100 degrees. Well, in advance, we replaced overstressed equipment, significantly improving customer reliability. Compared to the 4-day heat wave in September of 2022, we saw the total customer outage minutes fall by 85%, and the total number of customers impacted by an outage down 66% last year. We've also increased the volume of customer work significantly. In San Jose alone, we went from 623 new business jobs in 2023 to 777 jobs in 2024. That is a 25% increase. And we recently, just a couple weeks ago, held a press event related to the HICS 2101 circuit in South San Jose to improve reliability without compromising wildfire protection, benefiting 10,000 customers. And there are projects like this that we are completing all over the region. In response to Senate Bill 410, the CPUC adopted an order instituting rulemaking, an OIR, in September of last year to establish energization timelines for investor-owned utilities like PG&E. The OIR determines average and maximum timelines for distribution line extensions, service extensions, and EV infrastructure, as well as upstream capacity projects, and includes such requirements as communications for project delays or changes. And finally, we are talking directly with all of our customers, big and small, about all of this work. We're holding briefings with developers and business associations, and we'd love to partner with council members on those. We hold coffee connects in local cafes with residential customers to answer their questions and to discuss income qualified discount programs and the best rate plans for them. In fact, we just had a coffee connect yesterday at Crema Cafe, and we've held coffee connects at cafes that primarily serve Spanish-speaking and Vietnamese-speaking customers as well. And I host a quarterly virtual town hall where we invite all of the customers in the region, everyone that we have an email address for, where we share updates and also accept questions directly from our customers. So we're not perfect, but we're making tremendous progress that I'm very proud of for all of our customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. I would like to now introduce Sangeeta Dural, who is our Director of Work to Future in the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs, and Mirza Hanzar, who is a Program Manager also with Work to Future.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and council members. Sangeeta Dural, Work to Future Director, and with me is my colleague Mirza Hanzar, who oversees our PG&E Pathways program. We look forward to working together and being part of this vision of providing a skilled workforce in partnership with PG&E. One of the key workforce development programs we have in the city is the federally funded Work to Future program, serving 2,000 clients annually, 65% of whom have 2 or more barriers to employment. One of our core services at Work to Future is providing career pathways training, one of which is our long-standing partnership with PG&E Pathways program. I'm going to hand it over to Mirza, who will share some highlights of the program.
Good morning, Mayor and members of Council. Mirza Hanzar, Program Manager for Training Programs. We have been partnering with PG&E on various Power Pathway programs where we're serving annually about 50 individuals through an intensive 8-week, 320-plus hour program where individuals are getting placed at a rate of 90% placement and are earning at an average of $35 an hour. We're very excited to continue to collaborate with IBEW PG&E to develop customized training and career awareness programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to invite Hunter Stearns from IBEW 1245 to come on down to the podium and share his perspective.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor, council members. My name is Hunter Stern. I'm with IBEW Local 1245, as Erica just mentioned. 1245 represents the workers at PG&E and the workers at the City of Santa Clara, Silicon Valley Power, and about 32 other publicly owned utilities and one other investor-owned utility here in California. We're the largest IBEW local in the country, and utility work is what our members do. We have been representing PG&E workers since the mid-40s, and we've had a labor agreement since the late 40s with the company. And among other things, our workers interact with the public on a daily basis. It's not just the field folks, the line workers, the electricians, the gas workers. It's also the customer service reps, and the operating clerks and others who support, including folks in the garage and in the warehouse that support work that PG&E does every day. So we're pretty aware of what the company does, whether it's in San Jose, San Francisco, Scotts Valley, or Chico. Now, first and foremost, we've appreciated very much, and my colleagues at 332 are unable to be here today, but we have been involved in this process since October, about October or August of 2023. It's been helpful, it's been insightful, and it's been respectful, and that part has been probably the most important. So we do appreciate the opportunity to talk and give our perspective, and let me do that. We enthusiastically support the staff recommendation. We think that the city has done a very thorough and positive approach to this, and a measured approach, but we think that this is the best route forward for everybody involved. But since I represent the workers, let me talk about them first. Our members have been serving you and your community, as I said, since the 1940s. This is a dynamic area. I don't have to tell you that, but it is also an interesting, growing, and challenging one. And we fully understand the frustration that people had with PG&E and why the city pursued the process it did, because our members are the ones in the field and answering the phones, and so we hear it directly from customers. We are excited to continue to serve you and your constituents as we have for all those years. We're excited because that service includes expanding the grid, making it more reliable, creating more capacity, and pushing more electrons through to customers every day, and ensuring those customers are in power, if not 100% of the time, close to 100% as possible. I mean, it is that important. Mayor, you mentioned it earlier. Everybody understands how essential electric service is, and I can tell you customers are really unhappy when they don't have it, even if it's been explained to them why it might be off for a couple of hours. And so we are much improved in terms of ensuring that at least people know what's happening and how we can make it improve and impart that. And I want to add one more thing. Because our members are the lead, 98% of the customer interactions are with IBW 1245 members at PG&E. We get the brunt of the anger and frustration. If the city, as it has expressed, and you have expressed frustrations with the company, that boils down to constituent level, and that makes it harder for our members to do their work and avoid those harsh responses. So some kind of a collaboration, this effort, helps our members as well from a interpersonal relationship with the public, and so we appreciate that. Let me give a quick perspective of why I think this is good for PG&E. First and foremost, the exercise for the company to go through and interact and discuss in detail with the city of San Jose and with its constituents and their customers has been a really positive thing. I won't get into all the details. I've been around myself this is my 31st year with 1245. I've represented workers here in San Jose. I was a field rep for 12 or 13 years. I've had people up in San Francisco for a bulk of that time. So I'm familiar with the nuts and bolts stuff every day. And this kind of a relationship and this kind of exercise returns PG&E in many ways to the way it was when I started, where it had an outward-facing direct connection with local government and its customers. And I can tell you stories. I'm not going to do that, but they were mostly positive about personal relationships between the workers and the customers they served. This isn't the same, but it's a much better approach, and it's much better for the company to rediscover those skills and their ability to serve those customers. As I said earlier, it's going to improve the capacity of the local grid and the reliability for customers. The interconnection speeds are absolutely critical. If people can get power when they need it, it's better. It's also better for us because it's work for us, but it's better for the company. Not just satisfying their customers, but running, providing load, providing electrons, because that provides revenue, and revenue allows the company to do more work. I will also add that I think by forcing PG&E to work directly with folks, both the city and large customers here in San Jose, as well as all the individual customers, it brings them closer to the development and the goals that you guys have to ensure growth of the city in a reasonable and cost-effective way. And those kinds of that kind of development and those kinds of projects are enabled by the work that the utility does. The utility's even engaged in one specific project, but having more power, having more reliability, more confidence in the utility gives the city, I think, and PG&E the knowledge about how they can serve here and other customers throughout its service territory. And at the risk of offending a few people, I think I'm going to add a few things that I think that this approach will benefit the city of San Jose. First and foremost, and it was mentioned by Mr. Harkness, or Kip as we all call him, this reduces risk for the city substantially, and I can't overestimate that value. You do not put anything for the city at risk, and as was mentioned in the staff report, the opportunity is for a limited area, but the risk is for all constituents, all residents of San Jose, not just the city itself. Because if there's cost, it's going to be borne by everybody. You can't isolate cost to one area or one set of customers. It won't work that way. So I think that's really valuable. I think that creating a specified agreement with PG&E over work and creating obligations, we've had an agreement. It's a different kind of agreement. It's a labor agreement. But as I said, we've had an agreement for many, many years. We're not always enthusiastically supportive of the company. They sometimes do things that frustrate our members. But that agreement, that structure, has really helped us, even through tough times. And PG&E has always met those obligations. And I think that's an important part of the company, that they will meet the obligations that they undertake. And putting it in a contractual form, I think, is a very wise thing for both parties. It creates trust and relationships. The change in the dynamics, which was also mentioned in terms of the amount of load that the city will be using, is dramatic. It's also consistent with what we're seeing across PG&E service territory, what we're seeing across California, and throughout the West. We need a lot more electricity. By doing what you're doing now, this is going to put you ahead of everyone else. Not in a sense that PG&E is going to serve you better, but by getting this agreement in place now, it's going to create a roadmap for other cities. And it means that, yeah, you're going to be a trial, but it's a trial in the best sense, in the best way. And we think that that's going to be a benefit, or the IBW think that's going to be a benefit. I already mentioned the projects, and I want to finish by talking about workforce. Pathways is something that I personally worked with the company to help create many years ago. God, like 15 years ago, dating myself again. It is a very valuable pre-apprenticeship, pre-work program. We are happy to help launch that to the extent that we can put that in place here specifically in San Jose. Not launch it, but support it. 332 already works for the city. 1245 is right there with them, and we're happy to give our expertise and our membership's insights to any workforce development projects and workforce development opportunities, because we are going to need a lot more electrical workers, qualified electrical workers. And we know from our experience that finding those workers in the communities where they grew up means that they're going to stay in those communities. They have homes, they have families, they serve their neighbors, people that maybe coach them in soccer or football or baseball or basketball. Now they're showing up at their homes and checking their appliances or reconnecting them or upgrading their service. It's still those kinds of workers or workers from the community are the best bet. We know this from the Bay Area writ large, and we're happy to make sure that that happens. So again, we very much support this approach. We very much support a proposal from the staff that directs the city to enter into an implementation agreement with PG&E, and one that's not conditioned on any other issues, aspects, or parties. Again, thank you so much for the time to address you, and we look forward to future success.
Thank you so much, Hunter. So those are the 5 key elements of the implementation agreement. We are recommending moving down this path with PG&E, and we are confident and hopeful that we can be successful. But what happens if we are not successful? Kip?
Thanks, Erica. Again, so if the implementation agreement is successful, we can expect to see significant acceleration of large load customers in both North San Jose and downtown, with a resulting lift on the economic development side and the fiscal position of the city organization. Just a little bit about that. You know, having watched Silicon Valley for a while, you see these things come in waves, and those waves come quickly. And if you catch them, you accrete the next layer of innovation and the next layer of business possibility. And if you miss them, they go on somewhere else. And so now is an opportunity to catch this next wave of investment around manufacturing and data centers, in particular related to AI, and have that accrete here in the city so that the talent and the innovation remains here in Silicon Valley. It's been mentioned several times, but I want to emphasize as you all go into what is a very difficult budget conversation, that the kind of fiscal benefits that you can see here makes those kinds of conversations in the future much easier. As you all know, we have a lot of different funds, but a lot of them are restricted to this, that, or the other, and cannot be used for some of the important programs and work that you all want for your constituents. The funds that we're talking about here are general funds and unrestricted. These are the types of things that can be used for parks, libraries, police, fire, community centers, however you choose to invest them in the future, and gives you the flexibility that you deserve as a city to making the kinds of investments that your constituents demand. So it's those two reasons that we think that this implementation agreement is worth moving forward with. As Erica said, however, what if it's not successful? In any negotiation, you should always understand and have ready your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, or BATNA. The one book recommendation, since I'm a geek, I will make is if you haven't read Getting to Yes, it is a phenomenal book on mutual gains negotiation and is one of the ways that I try to think about these negotiations and others. And in Getting to Yes, you should both have and understand and sharpen your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Interestingly enough, our original BATNA was actually the partnership with PG&E, and that sharpened and improved so much it is now our preferred alternative. So our remaining best alternative to negotiated agreement is our plan to move forward with the build out of a municipal electric utility. Again, we would only do that if the implementation agreement with PG&E either could not be finalized or over time does not achieve the intended and measurable performance objectives. But by retaining the right as a BATNA to have the strategic alternative of standing up the electrical municipal utility to ensure the timely delivery of electricity and to support economic development and service needs in our city, the city has a strong position and a strong negotiating fallback. The ideal location, as we've talked about as we did the business case, would most likely be in North San Jose, near or on the regional wastewater facility and adjacent to the transmission lines being built out by LS Power. The most obvious opportunity for that would be the 159 acres or a portion thereof of the economic lands discussed earlier. Again, we do not seek to move forward, are not recommending moving forward, and are recommending instead pausing this, but we have that as a back pocket if these implementation agreement does not achieve our mutually desired success and gives us a point of leverage and, as I said, a strategic alternative. But today, what we are recommending is this. 3 things that we are asking for you to consider and give us direction on. One is to accept the results of our study and exploration today and the presentation we've made to you both in the memorandum and here today in the slide deck. 2 is to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute this agreement in its final form as an implementation agreement, which would include funding of the positions, consultant support, as well as the measurable objectives as part of that agreement. And 3, to authorize the city manager to continue the effort to evaluate a municipal electric utility if and only if PG&E does not meet the terms and performance obligations outlined in the implementation agreement. So with that, this concludes our presentation, and I and the team, I'm available for questions and welcome your direction. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all. That was very comprehensive, very educational. Teresa, I should have trademarked back to basics, but you can use it all you like. Thanks to the team. I realized after I was celebrating Kip, I did not realize, but I was informed that this may also be Nancy Klein's last council meeting. Is that true? No? You have another? Excellent. I'll save my comments for Tuesday then. Okay, great. I was about to sing your praises, but never mind. Why don't we do this? I'm going to slightly change the run of show here. Given that this is a special meeting where we will be taking action, I think it probably makes the most sense to turn to public comment and then come back for discussion and a motion from the council. Tony, do we have comment cards?
Yes, we have Ruth and Dashiell. Come
Great.
on down, you have 2 minutes. And
Ruth,
John-
go ahead. You're up first. You've got 2 minutes once you get started. Welcome.
John, John, also come on down.
Could somebody start this, please? I don't see this.
It's on. You're good.
Oh, okay, okay. Hello?
Yep.
It's not starting. Oh, I have to look up there? Okay, because otherwise I get, okay, let me just start mine here. It's not working.
Okay,
Can
so
you
timer's
come
not
over and
working on
see
the
it? 'Cause
podium.
I don't want to be looking up, but I'll just use my phone.
Okay, sorry. It's not working on the podium, Tony?
I don't know. I don't know the podium. This isn't.
Okay.
But yeah, it's blank.
So Ruth, I'm sorry. We'll have to fix the podium after the meeting. In the meantime, you can use your phone. The timer will be up above on the screen, and you've got a full 2 minutes once you start speaking.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, where did I go? Good morning. My name is Ruth Marino, and today I'm speaking to you on behalf of the Climate Advisory Commission of San Jose. The commission met last week and approved the letter we submitted to you yesterday. The commission agrees with the city's long-term goals of improving the reliability and affordability of clean energy infrastructure that is critical to attracting businesses and supporting economic development. The establishment of the municipal utility would allow San Jose to offer lower rates, estimated by the city manager's consultant to be 14 to 26% lower than PG&E. Of course, PG&E made over $2 billion in profits last year. These rates would be only available to the businesses and residents served by the new lines. Therefore, we believe that the best way to achieve the city's goal of affordability to the areas served by those lines is the establishment of San Jose Power. However, if the city first allows PG&E to distribute the electricity, then the city must appropriately establish and monitor the milestones and performance obligations as described today. Also, the agreement needs to be clear and specific on the terms that would allow San Jose to resume San Jose Power, such as the extent of noncompliance with the agreement, as well as the amount of compensation to PG&E for their investments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, I'll also call down Dennis.
Good morning, Mayor Mahan, San Jose City Council members. My name is Dashiell Leeds. I'm the Conservation Coordinator for the Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter. Yesterday, we sent a joint letter opposing the development of the 159 acres of open space south of the regional wastewater facility and north of Highway 237, designated as buffer lands in the 2013 Plant Master Plan. This area is home to numerous protected species, including burrowing owls and a pair of nesting golden eagles. It contains grasslands, wetlands, and vernal pools. It has immense potential for ecological restoration and habitat creation and climate change adaptation. The Plant Master Plan and City Policy 6-31 directs the use of these 159 acres. Policy number 2 contains language stating that, quote, permanent buildings or hardscape should be discouraged, end quote. And for good reason, as these lands are vulnerable to rising groundwater and associated liquefaction risks. Number 3 states, quote, buffer land uses must protect existing biological resources. Existing biological resources include areas with wetland characteristics, grasslands with burrowing owl habitat, and the Coyote Creek riparian corridor, end quote. Number 4 states, buffer land uses should provide environmental benefit. Buffer land uses that provide direct benefits to habitats that support species of special concern should be given priority, end quote. Data centers provide no environmental benefit. They can triple our energy demand and unfortunately can use gas fuel cells. Data center operators say it's for backup power, but these cells require a constant supply of gas and operate 24/7. Gas fuel cells generate a disproportionately large amount of greenhouse gas emissions compared to other energy sources. So we ask you, please abide by Policy 6-31. Please analyze and prioritize the open space for its habitat value and not for data centers. And if you do decide to build data centers, please consider converting and repurposing existing development in this area. And please ensure that if you do build data centers, that gas fuel cells are not used.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning. I was planning on doing this in 1 minute, so 2 should be no problem. My name is John Linthicum, and I'm a lifelong resident in District 1. Today's presentation was excellent, and it sounds like a great opportunity for the City of San Jose. My question is, can we investigate a Phase 2 to include existing PG&E customers throughout the city? Undoubtedly, you like me have seen increase in power rates. Our family's off-peak power rate has doubled in the last 4 years. During this time, we read the Mercury News that PG&E has record profits. Competition is important for growth, and PG&E needs competition. Through San Jose Climate Smart representatives, I understand that the Air Quality Resources Board has an agenda to mandate that by 2030, when residential gas appliances, furnace, hot water heaters, cooktops, etc., need replacing, they must be replaced with electric, not gas. Today, a hot water heater or furnace goes out in your house, and you can expect to get it replaced either that day or the next. Forcing an upgrade to electric will take days for an electrician to upgrade and install the home's wiring to accommodate the new load. If the home's electrical panel can't handle the increased current requirements, it will then take weeks or months for PG&E to upgrade their service to the pole. The Air Quality Board mandate needs to be postponed or eliminated and better communicated to San Jose residents. All areas in San Jose should have access to cheaper power and faster connection times. Councilmember Kamei, perhaps we can host one of these PG&E Coffee Connects discussed in District 1. Thank you for your consideration in expanding the possibility of San Jose power to all addresses. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Dennis Randall. I'm a local real estate investor and developer. I really appreciate the time that Kip gave me this last week to discuss the details of everything that he's had to go through to evaluate PG&E's proposal and also the prospect of San Jose municipal power. However, I want to share a thought. San Jose has a very unique opportunity in negotiating this agreement with PG&E, and I would like to add maybe an idea. The rates are a big deal for manufacturing and artificial intelligence, and these high load demands are very high margin business. So as part of the agreement with PG&E, I would hope that there would be a cost savings for the ratepayers of high load. Silicon Valley Power and Santa Clara use this rate advantage to be the driver of their economic development, not just in data centers, but in tenancies for technology firms as well. And San Jose can do the same, both downtown and up north. Moreover, San Jose has a real opportunity to leverage this type of development to include others, namely housing, as my proposal, all of you are copied, would provide new housing as part of downtown development for AI research. So just an idea, we need a rate advantage as well. Thank you.
Back to council.
All right, thank you all very much. Just coming back to the council, I'm going to just quickly kick off with a couple questions and then turn to colleagues. One on the Work to Future opportunity, the Power Pathways, I believe it's called. Is that currently at all in operation here in San Jose? What's the baseline? I was trying to understand the sort of new impact. So kind of baseline, how many people do we help get into the industry, and what is the sort of commitment for how we would grow that?
Yeah, I'll ask Sangeeta to come down to the podium, or her colleague, and address where we are in terms of the numbers today. And the intent, while it has not been codified yet in the implementation agreement, is to both continue that investment and expand it.
Good morning. So currently we have served about 25 individuals as of last August for the electrical program. We are still in planning phases for the next upcoming cohort and still working very closely with IBEW and PG&E on the next Power Pathway program. But annually, we do try to do about 2 cohorts each year, which average about 50 participants in each cohort.
Okay, great. And with this agreement, are we committing to an additional investment here, or are we highlighting what we're already doing in San Jose?
From my understanding, so we're still in the planning stages with IBEW for additional potential partnerships and being able to expand on the current one we have.
Okay, so I know we have OKRs that we're going to be developing. Is this one? Would this be a KR, a key result that we would be adding?
Yes, and I think Teresa would like to add from PG&E.
Yeah, sure, happy to. So yeah, we've had Power Pathway since 2008. We have graduated over 1,300 people, and the vast majority end up working at PG&E and have successful careers. We often partner with San Jose Evergreen Community College District or other educational institutions. So we are going to be meeting and talking about what the program will look like in the coming years together.
Okay.
And yes, we can certainly identify some OKRs for that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure if we're signing an agreement that has the city committing to pause any efforts to municipalize, that we're clear about the kind of what the benefits are. I mean, I think to Dennis's point, there's kind of a very unique opportunity for San Jose to drive a lot of economic development, and if we're going to allow for higher rates, I think in exchange, we want to make sure San Jose and our residents are really seeing benefits in other creative ways through our partnership. So good to see up to 50 per year, I think is what I saw on the slide. Sounds like we're maybe doing up to 50 per cohort with 2 per year, but it might be nice to know what the floor is and sort of what the key result is there that's the benefit. Thank you. To Dennis's point, to me, and for colleagues, this conversation here is really about new large load customers. There's a whole other body of work we're doing, and it's sort of a little bit overlapping, but kind of a separate study session around the existing heartbeat customers. This is about the next gig or 2 of power that comes online with new large load customers. Has there been a discussion of a manufacturing rate, an R&D rate, a way? To me, the big question, not to oversimplify it, but is how do we compete to ensure those large load customers choose San Jose, especially when we've got a neighbor who shall remain unnamed, but is able to offer a substantially lower price. And we know speed to power and our heightened level of collaboration is going to give us a little bit of an edge in some ways, but people are not totally price insensitive either. So how is that factoring into the agreement we're being asked to move forward today?
The agreement, as it's structured, does not address directly the question of rates. I know PG&E will want to have some thoughts on that, so I'm going to turn it over to them, but I'm just being clear. At this point, we do not have that as a key deal point, and that has not been a point of substantive discussion. Anybody on the PG&E side want to add?
I'll just add, Mr. Mayor, I think, as I mentioned in my thoughts, I mean, right now what we're seeing is an emphasis on power availability and speed to market. And I think you can see from the 1 gigawatt of customers that have already signed up in the San Jose area, that's like the most important part. We're certainly focused on cost. We understand what our current position is. As I mentioned also, we think the added load will help us continue to contain costs and actually drive down costs for all customers. But as Skip said, the rate pricing is not part of the implementation agreement today.
I get that, and I think it has to continue to be part of the conversation in the sense that we talked about the 3-legged stool last time. It's availability. Is the resource even there? which is a big question in many parts of the state, and we're very fortunate to have this new capacity coming online in San Jose. It's speed to interconnection, which I think our partnership and the resources PG&E would be investing in San Jose would, both physical infrastructure but also staffing and tighter collaboration, would give us an edge in and help us be farther along than maybe other cities and sort of have a bit of a comparative advantage. And then there's cost, and those are the three big factors. If our hypothesis is that availability of power, the capacity plus the speed and tighter coordination is going to unlock the investment that we see there and the signed agreements that are already being developed, and that cost is a less important factor, I think the question then becomes, what is the objective? What are the OKRs? What are the KRs that enable us to confirm pretty quickly that that hypothesis is correct? And it's not just expressed interest or even signed agreements. It's ultimately got to be pretty quickly shovels in the ground and actual construction and jobs and tax base. And so I know there's a lag, but what are our leading indicators that we can translate into key results that are going to tell us that we're right, that having a special lower manufacturing rate or whatever it might be is not necessary to get the 159 acres built out, downtown west going, other opportunities?
Excellent point, and this is exactly where, as we begin to negotiate and craft in detail what the key results are, what we are looking for is probably a standardized think about 3 to 5 key milestones which indicate both significant levels of investment, of progress, and increasing levels of investment on part of the business. So it's one thing to have an application and say, I might want to do this. We are all in this world, and I think Chris is with me. He knows there's a big difference between an application and a building. And so what we want to do is set some of the key results that they give us a strong indicator early on. Is this a serious investment, and is it moving forward on time? And so what we'll be doing is pulling out, again, 3 to 5 milestones for each of the large load projects, putting those down onto an internal dashboard that we'll share together, and then tracking those on a monthly basis. And so if those stay green, we start to see the actual development and the actual investment taking place, we think within 6 months we'll have a good indicator on that, and every 6 months we'll be able to do a hard review. But to your point is very well taken, which is it's not the idea of 1,000 megawatts that is interesting to us, it's the actuality of building this out. And if we see that the market is not able to do that with the constraints that we have around price, that's when we would be coming back, and the KR should be starting to go yellow to orange to red and come back with a recommendation to stand up the alternative.
Yeah, that's helpful to understand, and I think that's critically important. I think it's important that we have those early indicators early, and that, like you say, on 6-month cycle, we're understanding if we're tracking or not, because the reality is we're taking a risk, and we're taking a risk either way. But I'm comfortable with moving forward the agreement today and the city taking on the risk of essentially standing down in order to pursue what I think ultimately is probably got the potential to be at least better for everyone, including lowering rates for all customers, as we've discussed. But it has to translate into the investment in economic development and growth of the tax base in San Jose, and we have to know pretty early that the hypothesis is correct and that it's not all just going to go next door or to Texas or whatever. So I want to follow that very closely. That gets to my final question. I want to turn to colleagues. I see we have a lot of hands up. Rec C. The language is a little squishy there in recommendation C. City managers shall continue efforts to evaluate something. How do we determine, you talked about yellow, green, red, are we on track or not? Are we meeting our obligations? Obviously, PG&E needs to hold us to our obligations, which in large part is that we're not pursuing municipalization, okay? And other things we need to do. Who is the arbiter? How are we? And we need flexibility. These things have to evolve and change, and that's fine as long as it's done transparently and both sides can mutually agree. But how do we actually, what's kind of the accountability mechanism? Because that Rec C felt a little hand-wavy to me.
Yeah, so the accountability mechanism starts with the team doing the work. If they're unable to get to the point of agreement, or we see the things turning red, it escalate up to the deputy city manager level. And one of the things that I'm pleased with Jennifer's selection, the deputy city manager who will be replacing me, Manuel Pineda, has deep experience in this as CEO of Silicon Valley Power and Public Works Director as well. In fact, some have suggested he's an upgrade from the current
We would
deputy
never say
city
that,
manager.
Kim.
Well, some people have suggested that. And then the final arbitrator, the way that we're structuring the agreement, is the city manager herself. And so she would have the ability to make the determination if we are on track, and from the citywide perspective, are we moving forward? And if not, make the determination that it's in the interest of the city to seek the alternate path. Part of the reason we've asked for that C is that the alternative would be to have to come back to council with that, and we thought the delegated authority for the city manager to make that initial call is a powerful one and strengthens the agreement. I would expect, if I were in the path of recommending her at that point, we would immediately want to come back to council and let you know what our path looks like and how we are going to be exploring that. But by giving her that authority, we strengthen her ability to make the call on whether this agreement is meeting the needs of the city in a very real-time way.
Yeah. I think there's a logic. I think there's a logic to that. Okay, great. That exhausts at least my initial set of questions. Let me turn to colleagues. Let's start with Councilmember Casey.
Yeah, Kip, your comment actually is where I wanted to go. I'm trying to understand if all goes well and they meet their milestones, that's fine. But the worst case scenario that we're talking about here, and potentially you saying the city manager would be able to pull the trigger, I'm concerned with the way this implementation agreement is worded, with it preventing us from having that clear off-ramp into our own San Jose Power, so our BATNA. And conversations about, or clauses about cure periods or escalation triggers, I mean, we could be mired in that language potentially in court forever, and then that prevents us from moving over. So I wouldn't be able to agree on anything unless we actually saw that language and it was crystal clear to us what milestones need to be met and what the actual repercussions would be if they didn't meet that, because there's a lot of gray area here, and my concern is that this implementation agreement will prevent us from moving forward with our own San Jose Power. So how would we see the agreement first? Would we be able to weigh in on the language? Would there be actual teeth in the language?
The way our recommendation is we're asking for the authority to negotiate and execute the final agreement, so it would not come back to you for final approval. Part of the reason for that is that we want to continue to move at speed on this agreement. You can certainly provide us additional direction or clarification today on what should be in the negotiation of that agreement. Our belief is I agree with you and staff agrees with you that what we don't want to be is in an endless conversation about whether the performance obligations have been met. So let me be clear, the reason for the cure period is that this infrastructure work, as you know, is a long-term investment. And so simply something trending red in one quarter is not sufficient for us to say, hey, it's out. We want to give them a reasonable cure period, and we're going to bake that in. But we want to retain at our discretion the ability to make the call on whether those obligations have been met in a way that, given the long-term nature of these investments, is actually very quick. And so I feel confident that we are going to negotiate an agreement which preserves our ability to retain a quick ability to pivot if we need to, and that those consequences, especially as they relate to the potential to build this out on the 159 acres, are both very positive for us and very negative in terms of PG&E's bottom line, such to the fact that they provide a very significant incentive above and beyond our desire to cooperate over the next several years. It is still not ironclad in front of you today, and I understand that, and so part of what we're asking for is your confidence in staff to do the work that you direct us to make sure that we have that option available to us. We'll work with our attorneys, and we will work with our internal team to make sure that we are in a position to respond if PG&E is not able to implement.
I totally appreciate that, but I wouldn't be able to just agree on someone executing a contract that I haven't had an opportunity to look at and appreciate whether or not those clauses prevent us from getting out of this agreement in a clear path.
Maybe I could suggest, Nora, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about the work that your office will be doing. And I'm not saying that this is going to satisfy your concern, council member, but I also do want to note, I think it's fair to say, Kip, that it is also true if we do take action today and move this forward, that council members continue to have the opportunity to request briefings, ask questions, understand where things are going. And certainly if a council member, in getting those briefings, having that transparency with staff about any implementation work being done at the staff level, which we all have a right through the city manager to be able to ask those questions and gather relevant information, can always, if concerned, come back through, say, the Rules Committee to agendize an additional conversation. Obviously, in this case, we're talking about authorizing the city manager, city attorney, and staff to go do the rest of the work here, is the recommendation at least. But I just want to remind colleagues there are opportunities to, again, through the city manager, through the city attorney, through our appointees, to request briefings, ask questions, get additional information, play that sort of oversight role, if you will. And while we give direction as a body, so we don't get to unilaterally in those meetings give any direction, we can always, if we have concerns or feel that it requires more council oversight and deliberation, bring, request that become agendized and come back to the council. So I just want to kind of highlight that there is some process here as policymakers that we can also engage in outside of these meetings that can be constructive. But Nora, Kip, if you want to respond to that, you're welcome to. Nora, if you want to share a little more about your process and needing to continue to review and finalize the agreement, that might be helpful to the council member.
Thank you, Mayor. We received a copy this morning, and it was just sent on to me. And during this meeting, I've made arrangements for my office to set up meetings internally next week with a team of attorneys to review this draft now that staff has completed their work on it. And definitely happy to brief anyone, and we'll be working with staff and the manager's office to work through any legal issues that we see, and listening here concerns that council is raising about off-ramps or ideas like that. So we will be working on that next week internally, and again, if you want a briefing, let me know. Thanks.
Thanks.
And on our side, yes, we'd be happy to do the briefings as we progress to make sure that the direction of the council and your understanding of it are completely incorporated in an appropriate way into the final agreement. We agree with your concerns, and nothing that you've said causes me pause, and it's exactly the kind of agreement which I hope to negotiate and recommend as we go forward.
And Kip, just to clarify, I assume that we will also be providing periodic information memos.
Yes,
too,
and
so the
we will
public
be,
understands that as well.
Yeah, and once we are implemented, we'll be doing information memos. We'll be reporting back through Transportation Environment Committee. Where appropriate, we'll be cross-referencing to the council as a whole. Given the order of magnitude of importance of this project, this is something we want to keep the eyes of the council on very tightly, and make sure that you understand what we understand in terms of, are they meeting the objectives as measured by key results, and any indications that we have. We don't like to do what we call watermelon reporting, where it's green on the outside, but when you dig in, it gets red. We really believe in being open, candid, and direct about this, and we will continue to do that with this in particular, and make sure that the staff team is reporting out on a regular basis through info memos and formal memos where appropriate.
Councilmember, you still have the floor. Are you finished?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Appreciate it. Let me go to Councilmember Cohen next.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank obviously everybody in the box that was in and out of the box and in it still for all the work that you've done to get us to this point of the discussion. You know, representing North San Jose, where we have a lot of large tech companies, those who have had many concerns, I've heard concerns from them about reliability, about capacity, about flexibility, so that they can continue to operate energy-intensive R&D functions. Not just data centers. We seem to focus on data centers, but we have a lot of other customers who rely on regular, reliable energy for many months of running servers, where a single outage causes many months of delay or rework and can hurt their business. So these are the kind of concerns that obviously led me to want to figure out what opportunities there are, and this coincided with a once-in-a-generation opportunity of LS Power bringing 2 new large grid lines into the city through Cal ISO, and so it was a good opportunity for us to do this study, and I appreciate all the work that went into it. What I'm really gratified by, though, is that this the conversation that we started led to what I think is a much healthier, stronger relationship between the city and PG&E, and I think we'll come to a better understanding of what our needs are as a city and how PG&E can help us serve those needs. Provided us with resources, at least when we reach this agreement, will provide us with resources to staff up our department to help facilitate that relationship, to make sure we're upfront on developments and the needs of power and to be nimble as we move forward in our economic development. So I'm glad about that. I do have a question. Obviously, retaining the option of San Jose Power, I think, is important. I think it should be made clear, of course, that from the very beginning, as people heard this, there was this assumption among many in the public that this was going to be something that would benefit everybody in the city. And as was reiterated today, this had a very limited nature, at least at first, because we were talking about building out something only near certain locations of these LS power lines and for new development, we didn't have the capacity and certainly wouldn't have for a long time any capacity to purchase or take over any of the distribution already existing under PG&E, and that was not our intention. Although you never know in many decades in the future what the situation would hold, and once San Jose Power existed, there could be opportunities. And so it's important for us to understand how this backup plan, how this opportunity would continue to exist moving forward. First of all, I wanted to ask the question, there was a comment on the slide about all startup costs paid for by the private developer, and I assume that meant infrastructure startup costs, because obviously we also talked about the startup cost of standing up our own program or department in the city. Can you clarify that a little bit?
We actually meant all costs. So the model that we've talked about is a potential developer, let's say, Cohen's data center company is standing something up, though that would be a conflict of interest, so we'll make it something else. Is standing something up. We have gone down the road far enough and talked to enough people to realize that at least for the next several years, there is both a willingness and a capacity for those types of developers to pay in advance the full cost of standing up both the physical infrastructure, the planning work necessary, and the physical positions to start up the team, as well as buying out the power and meeting the regulatory requirements and building out all of the infrastructure. So all of those costs in our model would be borne by the initial customer or customers who would sign agreements with us so that those would be fully funded and not come from the general fund or bond funding or any other city sources. So it's a pretty good deal, and that's where the de-risking comes in.
Yeah, I mean, that does sound less risky than what I imagined, which is that we'd have to figure out a way to start up and fund the beginnings of a program that would eventually potentially pay for itself through what we charge the customers. So presumably starting up the entire program, while there's risk obviously in terms of time and the work that the city has to do and what the ongoing work would be, the risk in terms of cost up front would be minimal.
Correct. We would significantly minimize that risk. I never say you can take risk to zero, but I think that this would be very, very advantageous to the city to enter into one of these agreements in terms of fiscal risk to the city.
But presumably this means that the startup of this program would have to be facilitated through some really large-scale development rather than a one-off data center that wants to build. I mean, maybe some have the resources to be able to help us with that.
Actually, you'd be surprised. At the 99 megawatt level, you're talking about a sufficient capacity to run a small municipal electric utility very effectively. And one of the significant advantages, if you think about 99 megawatts, if you think about a megawatt as serving 1,000 homes, if you were to serve 99 megawatts in a mountainous area with 1,000 homes spread over potential wildfire risks, that would be tremendously complicated and costly. If I've got a single customer 500 meters from a transmission line who is running 24/7 at the same rate of power, who is backed by large pockets of pick your favorite tech company, that equation is actually the way that we were kind of joking about it internally with our consultants. It's like if you were to go to a master's degree student and say, pick your ideal way of starting up a municipal electric utility, it would be with a data center right next to a new transmission line on land that's already entitled for this. And so at 99 megawatts, it's quite it's quite possible to fully recoup the cost and deliver lower rate electricity to a single customer.
Yeah, and
you don't need any
stack,
bigger than that.
I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but I'm kind of watching my clock too. So.
I'm sorry. I'm getting into my last days of rambling here, so I'll be trying to be more crisp.
You can let Kip have more time if you'd like, but take it off my clock.
Kip, your 10 minutes is almost up.
Understood.
Yes, I mean, for example, Stack's data center that they're building right now is 100 megawatts, and just to be clear to really understand this, when Stack is building this data center, they're building a substation on site with their data center. So these are large projects that are not the typical project that we see. So it is. Thank you for clarifying that. I was going to ask a couple more questions. I think I'll hold off on some of it, but I was just curious.
I'll try to be crisp.
I was curious about the timeline we see. Like, if we were to decide later, hey, this isn't working, what's the time? I guess the first point is we wouldn't even be starting this up until a big development were coming, for example, at the 159 acres or something. We wouldn't be starting this up next week, even if we decided to move forward. The decision has to be made at some point, and it seems to me that the idea here is that if PG&E falls through, if something doesn't work out, we still have that off-ramp, hopefully, if we do this right. We have an off-ramp to do this, and that's the point at which we would have been doing it anyway. Is that correct?
It will take us, from the time we decide to stand up a municipal electric utility, it will take us multiple years to actually have a customer in service. And that timing will depend on the availability of power at that moment. At this moment, there's a lot of power, but we could, from the get-go, within a 3-year time, potentially be serving a client.
Yeah. So, and one more quick question. We obviously submitted an application with LS Power for an interconnect there as part of this exploration. Even though their work is done in 2028, building out this line, is there some value that we have this application in now, that even if it's 2030 or 2035, we would still have an opportunity to connect?
We wouldn't be in a position to hold on to that interconnection request for that long. We may hold on to it for a little bit longer to make sure that we have the initial launch that works, but we wouldn't want to misrepresent our interconnection request in a way that suggests we're going to be building out something that we're not. So at some point we'll let that lapse, and so over the long term it doesn't make sense to hold that as a fallback, but in the short term it does.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate Councilmember Casey's question and interest in making sure that we have a robust procedure for what it would look like if we determine that we do have to move forward in an alternative way. I'll try to craft a motion. I want to move the staff recommendation with the addition of making sure that that the concerns of Councilmember Casey about an off-ramp are thought through and included in an agreement, and also, along with other concerns you may hear today, make sure that those are addressed in the agreement if it's not coming back to council. And then let me just make one last comment, which is just to thank Kip. I did this at T&E as chair of T&E at your last meeting. As I said there, I've been struggling with coming up with ways to prevent this from happening, but I can't do that. But I certainly appreciate the great work that you've done, and also the great collaboration that we've had, and your ability to communicate. When you came out to our district and spoke to the residents of our district about how the city works and how the information goes, I've heard from people that was one of the best explanations they received, so I really appreciate your skill there. And I'm glad that you've given me one more book recommendation today, since I've read others that you've recommended in the past.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Council Member. Let's turn to Councilmember Salas.
Yeah, it goes without saying, thanks to everyone who presented today and all the work you've done. I think this is for you, Mike. I'm trying to understand the parts and pieces of this whole thing. I saw phase 1, I saw 250 megawatts, I heard the mayor say a gigawatt. Can I just ask you, you're talking about the wastewater treatment plant area, and is that only phase 1? Because I saw I think the substation down there at Coleman, is that part of phase 1, or is that later? The downtown, if you will, improvement.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of different things, and we may have used phase 1 or first part in a couple of different ways. So I realize that now that you've said it. The LS Power is currently building out a transmission line that's coming from the south and one that's coming from the north. Both of those have fairly recently been doubled in size, so it's a gigawatt of power capacity coming from the north and a gigawatt coming from the south. So those are currently taking place and being designed and built out. So that will enable much of the development and the growth that PG&E is talking about to be supported. They will do a number of extensive system upgrades in parallel and in anticipation of that to allow that electricity to flow through their grid, including rebuilding Substation A and some work on Substation B in the downtown area. So all of that will be taking place, if you will, as part of phase one. What we talked about in terms of the regional wastewater facility, and we'll come back with you probably in a separate meeting to go into more detail on that, is that the master plan 2013 of the regional wastewater facility has an environmental review and has always contemplated that this 159 acres would be for a series of industrial, commercial uses that would drive economic development integrated into the buffer lands and the restoration of the environment in the surrounding area. And so phase one of that, it's such a large area of development, phase one of that would likely to be a portion of the overall development. So just using a kind of a number to pull out of the air, we've been talking about potentially 250 megawatts of development in that first phase up to that. Ultimately, we think that 159 acres might demand as much as 1,000 megawatts or a gigawatt of capacity, but that's conjecture at this point. So what we would be doing is putting an RFQ out to get interest, short it listing 2 or 3 primary ones and beginning to see what the market appetite is for that, and that would define what the actual phase one is in that area, if that helps, sir.
It does. Let me just make sure, and then I'll probably turn it over to Mike. So again, I hear it coming up from the south. You're going to actually be able to improve both Substation A and Substation B downtown. That's part of it. At some capacity, it sounds like significant that we could look forward even to data centers downtown theoretically. And then coming from the north, you're also going to be improving something, but you're not going to add a substation there. You're just going to add a connection up on the by the wastewater treatment plant.
I'll let Mike answer the question to which you actually asked him first. I apologize for jumping in. I can't help myself. Go ahead, Mr. Medeiros.
No, Kip, I hang on your every word. So it's
no, I was going to say our work at Substation B is tied to the LS Power project that's coming from Metcalf into Substation B. So there's a significant work that we have to do to be able to allow that project to connect to the broader system. So that work is ongoing. We've been doing that. We are going to be upgrading Substation A as part of our need to serve the future loads in downtown, including the West Bank development, which I think you guys are familiar, but with all the other future growth that we are aware of that's going to occur in the downtown. As it relates to the 159 acres, we've talked a little bit about that. We think we've got a unique opportunity to support that first 250 megawatts of development that could occur out there. So we're going to continue to work that. I think we'll have something in the implementation agreement that addresses that as well.
Okay, great. And then I didn't quite agree with Kip's little yellow marks for innovation, but then I'm not sure. Up at, by the wastewater treatment plant, there's a Los Esteros power plant, which is 300 megawatts. And the other day, in my other life, which was only about 3 months ago, I took a tour of the new new hybrid battery turbine plants that Southern California Edison has. I'm just wondering, and we talk about driving down rates, is there any chance of being able to look at augmenting that with the battery systems they're using so they can buy into the spot market? I know you know what I'm talking about relative to those hybrid battery turbines.
Yeah, the Los Esteros power plant you're talking about is actually owned by Calpine, so a third party. Mm-hmm. So I mean, a decision to upgrade that or to add new technology would be a decision that they would need to make. Certainly, there's a lot of advances in technology. You're seeing large solar plants being combined with batteries. You are seeing some natural gas plants install batteries as sort of to be able to provide what's called black start service. Mm-hmm. So if there's an outage, they can use the batteries to repower the power plant to provide grid stability. So, and I would just say, what's also important is right next to that Los Esteros substation, right adjacent to the 159 acres, is a PG&E Los Esteros substation. So we think that's an important asset there.
And then one last quick question for Lori. We're talking about savings. If we had San Jose Power, savings of 14% to 26%, I think the number was. I'm just curious. Right now, and I confirmed, it looks like San Jose Clean Energy is already saving about 8 to 9% over PG&E. So does the 14% include the 8 to 9%, or is it, so there's really only 3? You can get the math.
Yeah, Lori Mitchell, Director of the Energy Department. Great question. So our modeling, that 14% does not include San Jose Clean Energy. So if we stood up a municipal utilities provide the generation service as well as distribution. So they would not be a San Jose Clean Energy customer, they would be a San Jose Power customer, and they would get their generation from San Jose Power. So that 14% includes the savings on the generation as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And then if we have, do I have time? I don't know how to, where's the 10 minutes? I don't know where that is. I'm good?
You're
Okay.
good.
So I just wanted to mention both to Chris and to Christine. So we had a vandal come into a little property on the commercial property I own in September. He burned out the entire PG&E service. So we've been running a backup generator since September. We just turned it off last night. PG&E came out and hooked it up, made the final connection for 500 amps. I wanted to mention to both of you, I would really like to talk to you about PG&E. I've heard you say how much you would like to make things work better at the working level for people, smaller users. And I asked the people who worked on the project about a scale of 1 to 10 communication and process. And in both cases, both Chris and PG&E got about a 5, and I could go into details. But I would like to debrief with both of you because I've had some really good experience just in the last 6 months now. So thank you. And by the way, in some cases it was pretty high. In some cases it was pretty low, so it averaged 5.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if that was a question. You were done. That was just offline. I got it. I'm sorry. I apologize. I was waiting for a response. Okay, thank you, Councilor. Appreciate those comments and questions. Let's turn to Vice Mayor Foley.
Great. First, I want to thank staff and PG&E for the presentation. It was very informative. And also, Kip, I want to say thank you for your friendship, your guidance. You always have some pearl of wisdom to share with us, and I certainly appreciate your expertise and will miss you, but I wish you happiness and joy in the next chapter of your life. I'm excited to have this go forward, but I am cognizant and appreciate the concerns of Councilmember Casey, and I appreciate that those were considered into the motion by Councilmember Cohen. We need to go forward with our eyes wide open. I think it's a good opportunity for us. Frankly, I've been a little concerned about the San Jose Power agreement, or power anyway, the risk to the city overall, but if that's a better opportunity at some point, it may be something for us to reconsider. But I do like the idea of a partnership going forward at this point, as long as we have the guardrails that we need and the off-ramps. One question, I also want to thank PG&E for continuing conversations with LS Power regarding possibility of co-locating down at Metcalf. Thank you for taking that into consideration and seeing if that's a possibility at all. I do appreciate that. Finally, I have one question regarding the briefings, Nora, that you will make to us. Will we be able to see the full agreement prior to those briefings? That would be really helpful then, rather than just a synopsis.
We can certainly arrange for that, council member. If it would help the discussion and shorten it, we're happy to do that.
Okay, yeah. Great. Particularly, I think Councilmember Casey, as the sitting attorney on our council, might really be interested in looking at that, but I would appreciate that. So thank you. I look forward to supporting the motion. I want to thank everybody involved in this. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Vice Mayor. Appreciate those comments. Let's turn to Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I just want to thank everyone in the box, everyone who was in and out of the box for your work, PG&E, our brothers and sisters from IBW, and of course, our city staff. Also want to thank you, Kip, for your dedication to the city. I was going to ask you who your favorite council member was, but I don't want to get anybody's feelings hurt here, so that's okay. I'm assuming it's David, but you don't have to tell us. You don't have to tell us. But I do have a few questions. I did see, and I know we're not moving forward with San Jose Power, but this is just a question in regards to feasibility for recruitment of the workforce. I saw that there is a difference between how much we're able to pay that workforce and how much PG&E is able to pay. How would we be able to recruit for a limited talent supply?
Yeah, that is actually one of the key questions that we came up against. If you think about a small utility, you think about the general manager, you think about the chief engineer, and you think about supervising linemen and then the linemen. And all of those are highly skilled and trained positions that have a very strong private market component to them. And given our current pay scale, it would be difficult to guarantee that we could attract the absolute and retain the absolute top talent along those lines. These types of positions, and Hunter Stern and others can talk about them much more better than I can, but when you're talking about these super high voltage outdoor line work and indoor line work, it's very, very complicated, and you want to make sure you are bringing on board people who both love the work that they're doing and are highly trained in it. So it would be one of the considerations that were we to move forward, we would really need to consider what kind of package would be appropriate to make sure that we brought on the appropriate people. At this point, we would face competitiveness problems.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure I fully understood that. And then in regards to the business case being narrowed to North San Jose, I totally understand that just in regards to potential investments, as said, data centers, research facilities, and I've heard about, I've heard Councilmember Cohen say he wants to do the downtown of North San Jose, which is a cool idea. But are we limiting ourselves in cases specifically for discussions about like downtown west and the investment in that area? And will us limiting this to only North San Jose essentially close off discussions for expansion in downtown west of these services?
Yeah, good question. So let's assume that we took the off-ramp and we were standing up a municipal electric utility. Our current recommendation is that in startups, you think about 0 to 1, right? Creating the first version of the product. We think that North San Jose is best placed to do 0 to 1 and start it up. However, you could serve the regional wastewater facility. You could potentially expand to serve the airport. There is the potential to serve downtown in future iterations, especially if you had large developments that were adjacent to transmission. So again, in no circumstance would I certainly recommend that we take over PG&E's infrastructure wholesale, but were we to be on a path of standing up a municipal electric utility, it is quite viable to expand this to additional service areas, including downtown, over time. Okay. Our initial recommendation is simply start with the area that's easiest and most lucrative, and you have the least barriers. And downtown, by definition, is always a little bit more complicated in terms of development, especially for some of these large load customers.
Okay, great.
And we have land that we own in North San Jose.
Okay, I see. So the conditions are essentially good for the North San Jose project. And then I know, first off, I want to thank the mayor for elevating workforce development, pipelines to careers. I think the trades have historically been the most trusted pipeline to the middle class, and so I'm glad we're getting, making sure that discussions in that area. I want to thank PG&E for making sure that discussions in that area are continued, as well as Work to Future staff. I see them here, and I met a lot of them yesterday, so thank you guys for being here. While we're having this discussion, are we also exploring conversations with PG&E regarding investments with renewables? I know that we have a goal to reach 100% clean energy, which is a big, lofty goal. Are we discussing with PG&E what their plans are regarding renewable energies, and are we advocating for that?
I'll actually ask Lori to come down and talk a little bit about how we approach our procurement of renewables. It's separate and distinct from PG&E's piece, so there are some overlaps. And so rather than speak on her behalf, I'll let the actual expert on this come down and talk to you about that. Lori?
Great question. Lori Mitchell, Director of the Energy Department. So as we mentioned before, one opportunity of this partnership is that although PG&E would be the provider on the distribution system, San Jose Clean Energy still is the default provider on the generation side. So that would be under our control to make sure that we're continuing to meet our renewable energy targets and our clean energy targets. And right now, our portfolio is 60% renewable. Every few months, we're here in front of council adding new projects to meet that portfolio need. So we expect that we'll continue to do that in the future.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I just want to make sure that we're using this opportunity to have those discussions. Definitely want to follow up, Teresa, potentially on a Coffee Connect. It's been good to be able to say, hey, I know that person on those commercials. And I'm like, hey, Mom, look, I know that lady. That's, you know. And so that's been really cool and good to say I have a famous friend now. But yeah, let's connect and see what we can do. I'm sure I have a lot of residents who want to talk to PG&E, and so let's explore that. But I want to make myself available to any of the parties here, PG&E, IBW, as these conversations continue. So don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
And the one in the district, we will call it Cafecito con PG&E.
There we go.
There we go.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Councilmember. Let me turn to Councilmember Kamei.
Thank you so much. And I too want to thank the team for getting to where we are today. I know when this first came up, it was not quite as collaborative, but I really think that all of the work that you've done together has been tremendously beneficial for both parties. Kip, I really want to thank you so much, and of course I will stay connected to you and live through all of your adventures in the future. But I really want to thank you for always being available, always being open to different things, and we're really going to miss you. So thank you so much. I know that this is an implementation agreement regarding sort of a smaller section of large load customers. However, I just want to express my overall concerns regarding performance of new customers versus existing customers. I think that the team who's here today has been excellent, right? But historically, that has not been the case. So I will let you know that I have heard from my constituents that there's a tremendous concern about PG&E. In terms of being able to provide service, being able to, even if you had the funds to be able to upgrade your electrical. I have a neighbor who has waited 2.5 years to be able to upgrade his electrical. That's not okay. So, while we're very excited about data centers, we're very excited about, this new venture with PG&E, there's a lot of healing that needs to be done. And I'm really delighted about the Coffee Connect because I think that there's going to be both opportunity and a need to go out into the community and say, how are you going to serve the community better, right? So I'm really delighted to hear that, but at the same time, I want to let you know that I have gotten a lot of comments about don't do it, Rosemary, Councilmember. We want our own because PG&E has not performed in the way that should be responsible. So you know that, and I think that there is a lot of healing that needs to be done because what it appears is that there'll be 2 levels of service, and that's a question that I want to ask is, will there be 2 levels of service where we're all very excited about the data centers because they're going to make you money and all of that, and then the existing customers, it's whatever. So I just want to put it out there as, in terms of what you are anticipating will be done by PG&E.
Yeah, service for residential customers and service from data center customers are provided by different work groups. So by supporting and constructing infrastructure for the large data centers, those are not going to be resources that get pulled from doing the work for the residential, the small commercial. Very different work groups, given the complexity of the work, but also how we sort of resource that work. And then from a reliability perspective, same thing. Most of these data center customers will have 2 transmission lines that feed them from PG&E. So to the extent that one line went down or we needed to take a clearance on that line to do some maintenance, they transfer service to the other line. And in the extreme scenario, if those 2 transmission lines go down, they have their own backup generation that would run for a few hours on site. So the reason I just bring that up is the reliability concerns for those customers are very minimal. So if there are reliability issues for other customers, our resources are going to be able to handle those. So 2 very distinct work groups, two distinct ways that we do the business. They're not going to conflict, and one's not going to take from the other.
But I guess what I want to point out is that, and I'm glad to hear that, because that is necessary for the data centers. But, you know, I know when there's a shortage in power, you know, who gets the short end of the sticks? Will it be prioritizing the data centers and not the customers? I happen to live in an area where, you know, we've had a couple of blackouts, and I don't know why the west side is prone to it, but it is. And so I'm just wondering in terms of prioritizing how the power is, and maybe when you come out to have the Coffee Connect, it'll be something that the residents are going to want to know. The service has not been great. And so it's nice that we're going to do this for businesses, but it sounds like even for small businesses, it has not been as good. So I'm just sort of trying to balance out and look sort of in a broader picture of what is needed from PG&E. So, because it hasn't been. So I don't need any answers right now. I can meet with you separately, but I'm just sort of looking at the overall, you know, when you're dealing with customers, whether it's data centers, small businesses, or residential, there's a need to do a little bit of fixing, because the prior experiences have not been so great. And, you know, many of us know that there's going to be a total shift from gas to electric, and you know, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District already has said, hey, if your heat pump goes out in 2027, you cannot get a gas water heater, right? So I think many are very worried about the cost of, you know, what is necessary to upgrade their electrical and all of that. And because PG&E is both gas and electric, we've been talking all about electric, but in that transition, what are you guys doing?
Well, I guess I'm not exactly sure what the question there is, but can I make a couple of comments? You mentioned a blackout, which has a very specific meaning when there's a shortage of power that can be delivered to customers. We haven't had any blackouts in a number of years. And when there is a shortage of power, there's a very scripted process that the PUC oversees called rotating outage blocks that prescribes what customers will have to be out of power for a period of time. Sounds like what you may have is a reliability issue, maybe a piece of equipment has failed, and I think we would love to understand what those are, and we can have that discussion. But I'm not exactly sure your last question, if you can repeat it.
So there's a move to go to electric.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, what is PG&E doing in terms of that transition from gas to electric?
Yep, PG&E has the same goals to be able to decarbonize. And actually, we have a group that reports to me that is determining what plans and what things that we can work with the city of San Jose to help you meet your decarbonization net zero goals here in the city. We see the same issue when customers will need to upgrade, that potentially, you know, the time and the expense from upgrading their panels. We're actually looking at a number of technologies that can avoid very expensive, time-consuming panel upgrades to be able to allow customers to be able to convert their appliances to electricity. Those are a number of things that we're looking at, and we're more than willing to be able to work with the city as to what we're seeing to make that successful.
Okay, thank you.
And if I can add one more thing, just quickly. When we come and do our Coffee Connect, we absolutely will bring data about reliability in the district so that we have hard information to convey, real information to convey.
I'm gonna stop you because my time is running out. So, but we can have a continued conversation regarding, you know, what can we do together when we have our Coffee Connect. Because I have to ask Kip some questions regarding the buffer lands that was brought up by the Sierra Club. So in terms of the buffer lands, I know that there are some concerns there, and I'm just wondering when that gets developed, will it be higher? Because I know many of the area that's in sort of that lower, in the North San Jose area, the buildings are so much taller because of the flood potential. So I'm just wondering, is the buffer lands an issue or not?
I'll say top line, and then probably a good follow-up for a more detailed briefing with you. The 2013 master plan takes into account the desire to do restoration for a vast amount of the area and preserves a relatively small amount of the campus for the economic development to be done in a way that has minimal impact on the environment. So we've got environmental clearance for that, and we'll be operating within that envelope of that environmental clearance to make sure that we are taking into account the consideration. We've put aside a huge buffer land, the largest I think in the state of California, for the burrowing owls that is separate and distinct from these 159 acres, as well as a huge amount of restoration of marshland and trail space in the area as part of the overall plan. So we can give you a more detailed briefing working with planning and OED on what that envelope looks like and what kinds of developments are allowed there by policy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember. Let me turn to Councilmember, Councilmember Dewan stepped out. We'll come back to him. Councilmember Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be very brief. I really appreciate the presentation, so thank you, staff, and thank you to our PG&E representatives. I'm just curious about the investment and the level of work that's going into this. Are you able to estimate how this opportunity is setting up for success in the future? How much time is this equipment going to serve us for? Are we talking 10, 30, 50, 100 years? When are we going to need to revamp our energy systems again?
Yeah, most of the work that we're talking about to support these customers and some of the large other infrastructures on our transmission systems, and these are investments that are 40, 50, 60-year long lifelong, investments.
Thank you. That was my only question.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Let me come back to Councilmember Dewan.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you, staff, and thank you, PG&E, for being here. Kip, you rock. We wish we could hold you back, but we want to make sure you're happy on your new endeavor in life. I do have a couple questions for PG&E or even staff for this matter. Do our city staff have the capacity to monitor and report back to council either PG&E meet their requirement or not?
Yes, we will. This agreement will give us 6 full-time dedicated positions to do both the forward-reaching outreach and coordination with the large load customers, the developing of commonly agreed databases and dashboards that we can share, and most importantly, making sure that the actual work in the field is accelerated and getting done. We will have a high degree of transparency and visibility, the best ever that we've had, into both the actual work that PG&E is doing as well as ongoing planning, and we will be in a position to report and brief back to council regularly with staff who are dedicated to this work, not simply doing this as other duties as assigned. And so those investments in the staff are what's critical for our standpoint that PG&E is making in order to be able to do this. If we were simply to sort of toss this over and say other duties as assigned, I would not be able to guarantee that. But with the 6 additional full-time positions plus support, we feel confident that we can keep track of what's going on and support the acceleration of it.
I just want to make sure that the funding to have the staff to monitor, they are not feeling that because the funding coming from PG&E, they become biased in a sense. I definitely don't want that.
Yeah, we agree, and I think we've demonstrated in other ways that we've done these funding agreements that our loyalty, first and foremost, to the Constitution, and then to the residents in the city of San Jose as directed by City Council and the mayor in the formal motions that you make. We will make sure absolutely they continue to be the agents of the city manager in the work that they do, and that it will be under her direction that we do this work, not under the direction of anybody who might have had a portion of the funding. So I can give you that guarantee that we will work in that manner.
Are you looking to report back to council quarterly, or what are the plan in order to give us the update?
I think we'll do a fairly regular info memo, and then we'll determine the cadence as we determine the work plan for the Transportation Environment Committee. We probably want to do an initial report back once we've got the implementation agreement underway, and then we can determine an appropriate cadence as we go forward. I don't want to overburden staff with reporting, to be clear, but the information memos can be a very helpful way to keep you all informed. And then if you see something that you need more on, we can always add something through the Rules Committee if there's a need. So we'll look to an initial report back probably in the next half through the T&E committee as we do that work plan would be my recommendation as a starting point. And I see the person who's actually doing that work plan and taking note of that. So that's where we'll start.
Thank you. I just want to make a clear statement on the fact that when PG&E upgrade a certain neighborhood and required our citizen to upgrade their panel from 180 amps to 200 amps, including trying to be carbon zero, going from gas to electric, it's going to cost enormously for the residents. For example, an average panel upgrade is now above $10,000. And that's not including running 220 wires to having electric water heater or electric stove. Those are costs where it could be estimated from anywhere from $80,000 to $150,000 for the residents. And there's same thing as I would imagine District 5, District 7, and many other underserved community do not have that type of funding. And I know PG&E have talked about giving $1,500 rebate. Is not good enough, and it's going to stop our residents from converting to electric appliances, and it's also burden them upon their daily living with the cost. And I would hope that PG&E would come up with a much better plan in order to support our underserved community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Let me turn to Councilmember Cohen.
Yeah, I just had a couple other quick comments, although I'll just follow up on that. That's a good preview of the discussion we're going to have soon about San Jose Clean Energy's programs and some of the other resources that we'll have available to residents. I had wanted to comment on the wastewater treatment plant lands and the question about the 159 acres because that's been asked a lot. You know, the area is much bigger than this 159 acres. And the word buffer kind of bothers me because this is not really meant as bay land buffer lands. These are buffer around the treatment plant that is between 237 and the treatment plant, an area that's always been zoned this way. At the same time, we're building out the levee and rebuilding buffer lands that are actually the environmental buffer lands out in the bay. That's making a big difference. And the other piece I'll just point out is that as we are bringing online our new continuous dewatering facility, we are going to be decommissioning, and can somebody out there tell me how many acres the current drying beds are?
700.
I forgot the number. 700 acres of drying beds that will be decommissioned, and presumably, my hope is that there'll be a lot of environmental open space developed at those lands, which will more than offset the 159 acres for economic development. That's starting this year, and so I think in the next 7 years, as we decommission all that, we're going to see a lot more open space, a lot more natural habitat, a lot more improvement of that area environmentally. So I just want to make sure that's clear to people who have asked that question. And the last thing I want to do is thank PG&E for working with LS Power to find the best solution on the switching station location and preserving the Coyote Valley open space lands. And also follow up in the future. I'm looking forward to following up in the future on some conversations we've had about pilot neighborhoods for electrification, maybe working with PG&E to start selecting neighborhoods and helping finance and show how we can electrify and go away from gas lines. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for those comments, Council Member. Okay. Any other final questions or comments? We have a motion on the floor. Thank you all again for all of the work, the thoughtful recommendation, and I, for one, am very much looking forward to this partnership and seeing the economic development and opportunity that it unlocks. Let's vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Thank you all very much. With that, we are adjourned.